So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to the Candidates Night presented by the Governmental Affairs Council of the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce. Tonight we will be hearing from the candidates running for the County Treasurer Tax Collector, Sonora City Council, and the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors District 2 and District 3. So please give them your full attention and they have taken their time out of their busy days to take part in this informative educational event. My name is Amelia Harrison, and I will be the moderator and MC this evening. Allow me to introduce our panelists. We have Margaret Davis, and Margaret is the past chair of the Board of Directors, Governmental Affairs Council, next year's president. She's the chair of next year's board for the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce, and the manager of the Junction Shopping Center. Then we have BJ Hansen, and he's the news director at AM 1450 and FM 102.7 KVML. And then we have Miss Lynn Riddle, and Lynn is the editor at the Union Democrat. Our timer is Jeff Redowdy, and he is with Blue Mountain Minerals. And we have our backup timers and check-in people as Brandon Russell in the back with 4th DMC Graphics, and Jeannie Schenefeld. There she is. We would like to thank Cable 8 for taping this event for broadcast at a later time, and we have Jerry Day. He's the manager. The candidates have all been informed of today's agenda and the seating by random drawing of numbers, so they do have their numbers already drawn. I will read a brief unedited intro provided by each candidate, followed by the candidates who will each have 1 minute and 30 seconds to make their opening statement. When responding to questions, first to answer will be seat number 1. And the first candidate to respond to the question will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer, while the remaining candidates responding to the same question will have 1 minute. At the end of the question session answer period, each candidate will then have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Our timer will help the candidates keep track of time. Nice big timer over there. They will be able to see the timer and the remaining time. At the end of their allotted time, I will urge the candidates to wrap up their response promptly. We will have cards in the back of the room for the audience to write their questions and submit it to one of the runners in the room. They must be legible, easy to understand, and be different than what has been asked or may be asked. Your questions may make it to the panel, but please keep in mind the panel members already have several questions before them, and time must be available for additional questions to be posed to the candidates seated at the dais. Finally, remember, the mics are hot. This is a family-friendly show. No cursing or rude language. Candidates, this is not a one-on-one. So address the panelists and the audience in the room and those listening, or excuse me, those watching from home. If a one-on-one does occur, the aggrieved candidate will have 30 seconds to rebut. If this continues, the offending candidate will lose 20 seconds for each offense. The aggrieved candidate will gain 20 seconds for each occurrence. So the rule of thumb is just don't do it. Now let us begin with a few words from our Registrar of Voters, Debbie Batista.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here. And first, I want to congratulate all of you who are here to get information about all the candidates so you can make an educated guess or educated choice on which candidates that you want. But there are some new things going on in election world, and if you can get the word out, that would be wonderful. And I know that some of the candidates are going to particularly be useful in getting this word out. Like last time, we now have a 3-day post mark on all ballots. So people should be getting their ballots even today, hopefully, in the next couple days. If they postmark their ballot on June 5th, which is Election Day, and we receive it on June 8th, which is 3 days later, we will be able to count that ballot as long as they are a viable voter. The other thing that has really changed is that we will have what's called conditional voters starting this year. So if one misses the deadline for registering to vote and one comes to my office downstairs all the way through 8 o'clock on election night, they can register to vote. We will check their registration against all 58 counties in the state at that moment in time. And as long as they have not registered or voted in any other county, we will let them vote that night. If they go to a polling place and they're not registered to vote, they will be given a provisional ballot, and we will not count their ballot because they won't be registered. So any of your friends, any of the people that you meet who turn 18 on or before June 5th and are not registered to vote on election day, send them to 2 South Green Street, not any of the polling places. So that has changed. We still, as most people know, the majority of the voters in Tuolumne County vote by mail. The ballot should be in our hot little hands in the next couple days. Voting downstairs has already occurred. It started on Monday. It will go all the way through election night at 8 o'clock. So get informed, get out there and vote, and pick the best choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And she's the one that definitely has all the answers, more so than the rest of us. So at this time, I would like to introduce our candidates for County Treasurer and Tax Collector. Michelle Ronning is the county's Revenue Recovery Manager since 2013 and the direct backup to the current Treasurer Tax Collector. She is trained in all 3 divisions of this position, which include the Treasury, Tax Department, and the Office of Revenue Recovery. She has a master's degree in business administration, management, and strategy, and a bachelor's degree in accounting. She has 18 years of management and customer service experience, including being the California District Manager of a coffee roasting and wholesale company, working in the Controller's Office at San Jose Harley-Davidson, and an accounting position at Pine Mountain Lake Association. For more information about her job history and qualifications, you can visit her website at michelleronning.com.
So good evening, and thank you for having me. My name is Michelle Ronning, and I am running for Treasurer Tax Collector. I've decided to become a candidate because I understand in detail all that this position encompasses, because I have been working as the direct backup to the Treasurer Tax Collector for the past 5 years. In addition to my office experience and mentioned in my introduction, I have a master's degree in business administration and management and strategy and a bachelor's degree in accounting. I also continue my education each year by attending seminars to stay updated on the ever-changing laws, and I stay current on county business by attending board meetings and meeting with other departments on a regular basis. I am trained on all of the computer software systems that our office uses. I understand county policies and procedures. I have budget preparation experience and understand HR laws and regulations from my 18 years in management. I have great working relationships with employees and department heads throughout the county. And during my time as the Revenue Recovery Manager, my team and I have increased department revenues year over year, resulting in lower operating costs to the general fund. We have streamlined processes, which have helped shorten wait times and increase collections. I want to be able to continue upon these successes, and if elected, my top priority will be to cross-train between the 2 departments. This will provide additional resources for each of the departments and ensure greater customer service for you. So I would be honored to be able to continue and serve you. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Justin Burtwhistle. He's running for Tuolumne County Treasurer and Tax Collector because he feels this office will enable him to use his background and skills to benefit our whole community. Justin grew up in Sonora. He is a Curtis Creek and Sonora High graduate. Justin met his wife Gretchen at Sonora High in 1990, and they've been together for 28 years. They have 3 children, 16, 14, and 6 3/4. Justin is a licensed certified public accountant and has been with Wheeler and Egger CPAs here in Sonora for about 8 years.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, everyone, here for coming here tonight. And of course, thank you to the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce and KVML Union Democrat for hosting this event. My name is Justin Burtwhistle, and I'm running for Tuolumne County Treasurer and Tax Collector. I've been in public accounting for 16 years, and I want to tell you a little bit about how my experience will benefit the Treasurer and Tax Collector's office. We don't just do a lot of tax returns. Since 2002, I've been a financial auditor for local governments and nonprofits. I prepare their financial statements, help them put together their budgets, and I answer their questions. I evaluate their internal policies and procedures, looking for potential weaknesses and inefficiencies, and then I make recommendations for improvements based on federal and state laws, the state controller's guidelines, and best practices. Many California counties have elected a CPA as their treasurer tax collector. Why? Because we represent the taxpayers. For 16 years, I've worked long days and hundreds of weekends working for the taxpayers. And when there's a question or an audit, I respond to the government on the taxpayers' behalf. My passion is keeping taxpayers in good standing with the government. As a CPA, I know and I follow the law, but I'm on your side, and I'm working hard for you. I'm endorsed by our current Treasurer Tax Collector, Shelley Peach, and by our previous Treasurer Tax Collector, Del Hodges. I grew up in a family where my parents provided essential care for a large portion of Tuolumne County. As Treasurer Tax Collector, I could use my skills to do similar. Deep down, this feels like what I was meant to do.
Thank you. Thank you. So we can have our question. Our first question.
So the first question this evening, in no more than 2 minutes, why do you consider yourself an ideal candidate for this position?
And I start, correct?
Correct, yes.
I believe that I'm the ideal candidate because for the past 5 years, I've been working in the office. I understand the day-to-day operations. I also have a previous collection experience from all my previous jobs, budget preparation, which we deal with. I enjoy helping customers. I understand the tax rolls, and I just feel like I'd be the best person for this position.
Thank you.
I come with an external perspective. I understand how to evaluate policies and procedures, and I wouldn't be the one that shows up to work today and says, this is because that's the way we've always done it. I would look into the procedures and policies and see if there's a better way to put them together so that they're serving the public and serving the taxpayers at a more efficient or less risky way. I can adapt the kind of changes over time with technology or keeping up with other counties and best practices. And I have integrity, and I care about the community and about our taxpayers.
Okay, question 2 here, and we'll start with Mr. Burtwhistle. This position requires a true financial expert with treasury, investment, and bond experience. And can you tell us, well, you told us what you have, but how else can you work for the taxpayer and so forth? So,
with the treasury and investment, so I have extensive experience with tracking investments and their earnings over time, and making sure that they're available, when needed would be a strong point. I'm honest and ethical, be trusted with the, with the treasury, and I keep a paper trail for everything I do. Could, keep everything safe and yet still earning good investment. And what was is that to answer the question?
This position requires a true financial expert and with treasury, investment, and bond experience. So.
Okay. Well, I'm accurate. Make sure that everything is in the right place at the right time. And yeah, good with numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thanks. So part of my job as working in the Treasury is to reconcile and deposit interest. We get it multiple times a month. I reconcile the interest at the end of each month, and I have been training on the quarterly interest reports. I understand the reporting guidelines to the state, and I understand the county investment policy. We work with it every day, and I know all of our investments, when they're maturing, when they're going to be paying interest. So I have experience with that.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Okay. Well, that is a follow-up to another question that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It says, describe how you meet this requirement. So you can just say whatever requirement you want to talk about would be fine. Okay, Ms. Ronning, this is for you first. In what ways do you feel your experiences have prepared you for this office?
5 years, I've gone in there every single day for 9 hours. Okay, so I've had 18 years in management. I've learned a lot. My previous accounting experience has helped me with the Treasury and help reconcile bank accounts because I've done that in a lot of my previous jobs. When I worked at Pine Mountain Lake Association, I helped prepare their budget and I helped prepare all the different departments' budgets. So I was the go-to. Before everyone turned in their budgets, they came to me to make sure that it was okay and accurate and that they couldn't put things in the correct lines. I do collections. When I worked for San Jose Harley-Davidson, I called people all the time. I had to collect on accounts payables and pay bills, and also revenue recovery is the collections, central collections for the county and the court, and I manage that department. So
I have a broad experience with financial subjects, and I'm a CPA from a small town CPA firm, so every client has different needs and has a different question at a different time, and I have to do research and become an expert in something new every day, and I'm looking forward to becoming an expert in collecting taxes also. I have a Bachelor of Arts from UCSB, a double major. I've audited local governments, understand their finances and their internal policies and procedures. I communicate well with taxpayers and colleagues and the government, and I care for Tuolumne County, and I respect the law.
All right, next question, and we'll start with Mr. Burtwhistle. If you could ask your opponent any question, what would it be?
That's a good question.
do I have to answer it?
Good answer.
How'd you like to work together?
Yeah. You know, I met Justin just maybe a month ago at one of the first candidate nights, and I think you're a great guy, and you know, we would probably work really good together. So you're a nice person.
Likewise.
And for Ms. Ronnie, and same thing, if you could ask your opponent any question, what would it be?
If you were my manager, what would you do to keep me motivated and inspired and to continue learning new things?
Well, I don't know if you've seen our cookies, but we well, I'd like to do things away from the office too. We were just talking about things that we do away from the office in common, and I have a nice work environment. Definitely, I always work as a team and a positive. Everybody, smiles and is happy all the time, and so that's what I'm used to, and that's what I would like to see happen.
Next. Okay. Is that one from the audience?
Yes.
Oh, here's one from the audience. We'll do this. What is that? Oh, okay. You are seeking a high-level county management position. It's hard to read. Budget responsibility.
Yeah, question from the audience. You're seeking a high-level county management position with budget responsibilities. How many Board of Supervisor meetings and County Finance Committee meetings have you attended?
Yeah.
Me? I attend at least one board meeting a month. If not, I stream it and I have the audio in my office. So it's always on. Finance committees, I've been to 5 or 6. And I plan on going, they have the cannabis one on the finance committee coming up. So I plan to be in that meeting because it may affect our department. So I attend most board meetings.
I have not attended a supervisor board meeting. I intend to. At this point, I all of a sudden have a great interest in it. This is this is exciting. I usually am committed to working long hours and not able to do a whole lot outside of work and family. And so this will be a great opportunity, I think, to be able to be involved in things like that. That's kind of what I would like to do. Not kind of, that is what I would like to do. Okay. Be directly involved in the community.
Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Birtwistle, I think this is for you first. How does party politics play into your job as tax collector?
I'm a professional, and this is not a partisan office. I would follow the law as set by the people, and if the people were to decide to make a change, I could implement those changes within the department, but I would not question them. I'm a taxpayer advocate, so I would be, trying to communicate with the taxpayers and communicate back and forth from the taxpayers to the people making the decisions also. As an auditor, I like a paper trail, documented support for decisions, but I don't let my personal decisions influence my work responsibilities. If they were to decide to add a tax or change a tax or remove a tax, I could implement those changes appropriately.
Okay, like you said, this is nonpartisan, but the Treasury and Tax, we follow the Revenue and Taxation Code. And for the Office of Revenue Recovery, we follow the Judicial Council, the state laws, and we have to follow and keep updated on the Assembly bills and Senate bills that affect our collections.
Do you want to do one more, or do you want to do closing statement? Okay. So we are going to do closing statements now, 2 minutes for each candidate. And we'll start with Michelle.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank you all again for having me here tonight. And I want to just close out to go over my qualifications again. At the time of the election, I'll have 5 years of direct office experience. I'm in there every single day. I know all the computer software programs. My education exceeds the minimum qualifications to run for this position. I have accounting and budgeting experience, 18 years in management and customer service, and I understand government, county policies, and procedures. So a vote for me will mean a smooth transition into the next administration. I will be committed to fulfilling the obligations and responsibilities of this office, and customer service will always come first. So my name is Michelle Ronning, and I would appreciate your vote on June 5th. Thank you.
As treasurer and tax collector for Tuolumne County, I will ensure the proper safeguarding of your tax dollars, make certain services provided are always convenient, courteous, understandable, and transparent. I'll build upon the successes of the past treasurer tax collectors, keep informed of new opportunities, promote existing programs. If elected, I will take office full-time in 2019, so I'll have lots of time from June to January to train with Shelley Peach. We have a schedule planned, and I'm excited to learn how the policies and procedures all fit together to serve the public. I'm 44. My wife and I were raised here in Tuolumne County. We moved back here 12 years ago to raise our children here. We're all active members of our community. 4 years ago now, I had to give up volunteering with the Tuolumne County Fire Department because I just had too many time conflicts between training and tax season. This is a perfect way for me to fulfill my need to serve the community. I have the proper knowledge and skills, proven commitment, and strong desire to get results for our community. Those of you who have known me over the years know I'm honest and ethical. I have a bachelor's degree from UC with double majors in business economics, biology, and I'm here to stay and I want to help. I'm endorsed by our current and former Treasurer tax collectors. I'm a licensed certified public accountant with pertinent governmental knowledge, investment experience, and I represent the taxpayers. I'm prepared to serve you and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. 2-minute break. All righty, so now we're going to introduce our city council. So first we will have Jim Garavanta. And Jim is a fourth-generation county native. He attended Sonora Elementary, Sonora High School, and Columbia College before receiving his bachelor's degree in history at UC Davis. Returning to Tuolumne County, he involved himself in public service by joining community organizations, by serving on several governmental committees. Jim was first elected to the city council in June 2014 and currently serves as Sonora's mayor pro tem. Yep.
I wasn't sure if you were going through the whole thing first, but yes, I currently serve as mayor pro tem. I have been chairing the homeless task force, the Parking and Traffic Commission, and also serve on the county's solid waste committee, local agency formation commission, the Yes Partnership, and prison advisory committees. Previously, I've served on the Tuolumne County Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors Planning Committee, and the Tuolumne General Hospital Board of Trustees, right there at the very end. I was also a citizen representative for the Parking and Traffic Commission for 9 years and on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Transportation Council for 12 years beforehand. And I also co-chaired the successful Measure I campaign in 2004 that strengthened public safety in the city of Sonora. In community organizations, I'm currently president of Eureka Engine Company, one of Sonora's historic fire companies, and I'm actually missing a meeting as we speak. So I hope the other president is taking care of that meeting well. I also have served as president of the Historical Society and the Public Access Television Board. I have years of experience serving at the county, city and county level, a strong knowledge of the workings of local government, and the passion and desire to make government work effectively and efficiently. I believe in open government and people working together to find quality solutions.
Thank you, Jim. And then next we have Colette Such. And Colette first arrived in Sonora as a hopeful 18-year-old. She's lived in Sonora ever since. Colette has spent her life in service to our town, 35 years at Tuolumne General Hospital, including 25 years in management, then to VNA Hospice. Colette learned fiscal responsibility and her compassion deepened. She learned to never delay difficult conversations and to listen to those with whom she disagrees. After retirement, a new chapter with the Columbia College Foundation, where she currently serves as board president, and has found a love for the work and its daily miracle. Colette promises to bring this same dedication, integrity, vision, and heart to Sonora City Council.
Thank you, Amelia. And good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. I'd like to begin by elaborating on my work experience because it clarifies my unique qualifications to serve my community as a Sonora City Councilwoman. I managed Tuolumne General Hospital's cardiopulmonary department for over 25 years, and in that time, I increased the minimal qualifications of staff. I purchased state-of-the-art equipment. I added services. I brought in additional revenue, and I balanced my budget. When Tuolumne General Hospital finally closed, the cardiopulmonary department was in the black. I managed Tuolumne General Hospital's cardiac rehab program for the last 4 years the hospital was open. The program was losing large amounts of money, and I asked if they would give me 6 months to turn it around. I started with a thorough review of policy and procedures, past profit and loss statements, and past budgets. I reviewed insurance reimbursements, staff, patient ratios, average class attendance, surveyed customers, and interviewed staff to understand their needs. I submitted reports of my findings to the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors and outlined 5 possible scenarios. I wrote a grant that allowed the department to replace equipment, computerize data collection, and streamline insurance procedures to maximize reimbursement. In a little over 6 months, cardiac rehab was running in the black with new equipment and streamlined staff. A much-needed and beloved program was saved, and I did all this knowing nothing about cardiac rehab when I first entered that department to try to save it. I tell you this detail to illustrate that I know how to manage, I know how to prioritize and communicate.
Thank you, Colette. And then we have David Axelrod. He has lived and worked and voted in Sonora since moving here in 1989. He worked as a park ranger and a firefighter for 12 years in the Bay Area. In 1988, Axelrod earned his law degree at the University of California, Bolt Hall, is that correct? That's the name of the law. And passed the bar. Since then, he has served as an attorney for the state of California, as deputy county counsel for Tuolumne County, and currently as a private attorney and mediator in Sonora. David Axelrod has also worked as an adjunct professor at Columbia College and as a musician, singer, and songwriter. He strives to make Sonora happy.
Mm-hmm.
David?
Thank you. Thank you, Amelia. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Turn on.
Oh, I see. It was green, but not green enough. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting on this event, and the audience for showing up, and the audience that may or may not hear this on the radio or see it on Cable 8. My platform boils down to make Sonora happy, and insofar as Sonora is already happy, make it happier. How to do that? Promote events, arts and music. I think Sonora's sign says it's the queen of the southern minds. It should also be the queen of motherlode arts. So we should put on even more regular events. Closing Leineberg would be a good idea in that direction. Preserve the historical heritage of this area. That's very important for our own enjoyment and those who visit. Conserve the environment. I'm the person that saved the elms of Columbia by representing the Friends of the Columbia Historic Society, who are trying to save the elms of Columbia from being cut down by the county. I believe in property rights, helping the homeless, promoting small business, and doing little things like watering the plants so that we have landscaping, trees, shrubs, and flowers along Washington Street and elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our first question, please.
All right, and Mr. Garaventa, the first random question here. How do you think the City of Sonora Planning Commission could be improved?
That's an interesting question. Probably better training on what planning and land use issues that they need to do. When I sat on the county's planning commission, we often went to the state planning commission association conferences, and they gave us great insight in how to what our job really was to do. And I think that we haven't, for as long as I've known, which is a couple of decades at least, I would think, I don't think that planning commission members ever got any training other than basic, what's in their welcome letter. So I don't know where we'd find money in the budget these days to do that. However, I think it's important to do the right job in land use for Plan Commission members to have some sort of training to go to. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Such.
Well, certainly training is critical for everything. I also would like to see the Planning Commission reach out to the community more. I think we could use more community involvement in the Planning Commission. And also to visit cities cities that are vibrant and see what they are doing that we're not doing, that we could incorporate in our City Planning Commission. And that's what I would do.
And Mr. Axelrod.
Yes, I agree with the answer that was just made, and I hope that's not too much of a debate point, but I actually wrote down before she answered, reach out for community ideas and input consistent with law, because there needs to be calendaring of events so that people know where they are, and possibly there should be meetings all around the community so that people can attend all around the town of Sonora and let people know what's going on, because there isn't enough outreach. Also, bringing in ideas from elsewhere when we see what is going on in Angels Camp and Murphy's. They've tried to develop their community so it would be a good place for school kids to want to visit. We've got Columbia nearby, but the city of Sonora itself could do a lot more, because Sonora really has a strong historical heritage, and we need to keep that alive. There's enough towns like Modesto and Stockton already out there. We're not going to out Modesto in modestification, which is a word I heard at a city council meeting. We've got to be Sonora. We've got to be ourselves, and in these meetings involve more ideas from the public for user development and community control of our resources.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Such, this one's for you first. Okay. How would you like to resolve the increasing number of pedestrian accidents on city streets?
That's a good one. You know, I think there are some corners that feel unsafe to me, and especially if the large trucks are parked at the very end of the block. It really obstructs the crosswalks, I think. On Stockton Road, it's all about lighting. I actually think the Vision Sonora program that talks about a pedestrian pathway would help that a lot. Our city is not really built for pedestrian traffic, and I think that's actually a shame. I think pedestrian, we need pedestrian traffic. I think the Lineberg closure would help with that, just with more people staying downtown. Lighting, just better, the crosswalks need to be, big cars need not to be parked so close to the crosswalks. I think that's what I would add.
Thank you. All right, David Axelrod.
Yes, to follow up on the last speaker, I used to work for Caltrans Legal Division when I worked for the state of California as an attorney. And one of my good friends from Sacramento came here to write a report to close the crosswalks, feeling that would accomplish the main mission of Caltrans, which is to move the traffic faster. And I'm all for that, because I look out my window of my office and I see all day now, it's worse than it used to be. The traffic isn't moving very fast. And you might say that makes it less dangerous, but it's even more dangerous. My car even got hit this week, and good thing I wasn't in it, or I'd have an accident claim, bodily injury. But people get frazzled by the traffic. And so her idea was to close the crosswalks, and I talked her out of that. I said, we need crosswalks because it's public safety. If you have to dart across the street without a designated crosswalk, that creates a danger. Lineberg, the lack of view on either side as when entering and trying to turn right or left or go across Washington Street has caused accidents that I know of. So there are changes can be made. Certainly rerouting Highway 49 is, in the long run, would be a good idea. But in the short run, more parking would help. And crosswalks that are actually designated with lights, as they have in some towns, would make it clearer to many people that you have to stop at the crosswalk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Sure. What many people don't realize is that Highway 49 is a state highway, and unfortunately, it's controlled by Caltrans. Unfortunately for pedestrians in a lot of ways. That includes North Washington Street from the stoplight and then down Stockton Road. Working with Caltrans can be problematic. Dave talked about his experience. I remember about 5-7 years ago, there was a status report on Highway 49. It talked about 4-laning Washington Street through downtown. Well, how are you going to do that? You're going to wipe out all the historic district of downtown. So that was a non-starter. So that gives you an idea of some of the communication disconnects. I think we need better sight lines at the corners. If that means reducing some of the traffic, like Colette had said, I'm all for that. You get a large pushback from the merchants downtown, but we just have to find other places to garner more parking. The lighting is improved with the new lighting downtown, and I think that's helped a great deal. But getting the traffic, so much traffic through over the Greenlee Road extension, or whatever you want to call it, would really be the only real solution, I think, to get a lot of the traffic and reduce some of those problems. And that's a long ways away. 24 years under our current transportation plan, but that's before SB1.
All right, thank you. Okay. Then
Mr. Axelrod, this one is for you. When I saw this, I thought, you know what? I'm probably going to get this question. Are you ready? Do you favor a pooper scooper ordinance? Why or why not?
You know what? My gut level reaction, and I'm trying to keep it clean, so. But my gut level reaction is I happened to be sitting in the courthouse square the other day, and I saw a gentleman with a pit bull, and he was walking his dog, and it pooped, and he didn't scoop. And I'm thinking, well, where's this pooper scooper? Then I'm thinking, well, maybe the county workers who clean up the park, or the people working off their probation, maybe that's their job. But if there were an ordinance, then it would be a question of enforcing a law that might seem petty. So as with all matters that may come before the city council, I don't want to decide it on the spot. I want to hear from both sides and then make an intelligent decision. I did kind of jump the gun on Linoberg because I already took a position, so I'm disclosing it, that I believe that it should be closed at least partially, if not all the time, for the reasons I can state. But as far as the pooper scooper ordinance, it makes sense to me, especially in an urban area like downtown Sonora, that people clean up their waste or their dog's waste so that people don't have the unfortunate experience of stepping in it accidentally. You have to look where you're going, I guess. So that would be my inclination, but I would want to consider the ups and downs and how it would be enforced.
thank you.
Yes. Yeah, dog owners need to have responsibility for their own pets. And I think it's frankly disgusting to let pet owners to allow their dogs to do their business and just leave it for someone else to clean up. Usually the business owner, if not, Public Works or whomever happens to come by. So I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I will tell you, though, there is a group that's working with the Tuolumne County Land Trust, I believe. There's the Tuolumne Land Trust. That is looking to put doggy bag locations I think they're up to 3 now in downtown Sonora. That's coming in the near future. And maybe that will help to remind pet owners that to show responsibility, but also as a less than gentle warning, shall we say, to do the right thing. So.
I say no. And the reason I say that is you know, the Tuolumne County Land Trust has, I think, donated 3 stations, dog waste stations. I think, you know, a lot of people, we talked about this at length at the homeless task force one evening, and because somehow it was being attributed to homelessness, which I don't really think they're the ones that are necessarily more responsible than anyone else. It's just people with bad manners. I don't want people calling the police because of dog waste on the sidewalks. That seems like not a good use of their time. I think signage about please pick up after your dogs. I think I would like to see the dog waste stations installed and see if that really makes a difference. I think that that's a very subtle but effective kind of education for the community. I'd like to start there. I don't like to see a lot of additional ordinances that we're not going to enforce. I mean, who's going to call to enforce that? And for instance, if someone sees someone letting their dog defecate on the sidewalk, you know, we should be good citizens and bring it up to them, as long as we can be civil and keep it safe. But I would like to not see another ordinance written for that. Thank you.
The next question for Mr. Garaventa first. Would you be willing to fund a K-9 officer for the Sonora Police Department?
Well, K-9 officers, I mean, the K-9 units are pretty expensive when it comes to maintenance and all that. So I'd really have to look into it to know. I know that we do have mutual aid agreements with both in fire and police with our county counterparts. And they have 2 K-9 units, 2 or 4? 4, I think it's 4 now. And so I think if there was a situation that would arise to where it was needed to bring a K-9 into a situation, I think we would be able to have some agreement with the county and have one of the sheriff's K-9 units come in. You know, there's a lot of cost, and as you know, the city's our budget is pretty tight these days. If we had enough funds to access funds to do something like that, I would probably look into it a little more in depth. But at this point, I just don't see it. I remember Dwayne Ellis who later became police chief, had a K-9 unit for the police department when I was a kid. So it's not a new idea, but I'd have to look into it more. But I at this point, I'm not sure where the budgeting would come for that.
As such,
you know, I am kind of pro providing services for the police, but I would actually need to review this and see the cost benefit, the cost benefit ratio, and at the cost of other important programs with the police department, I wouldn't think so. But if there is money available for that, I absolutely would support that. But I would have to look at the budget, because that always would inform my decisions, as if there's money in the budget. So I'd need more information.
Mr. Axelrod.
Thank you. Yes, I wouldn't make a decision or state a view on that before discussing it with the Sonora Police Department and having their input, have them study it even, and then get back to us on it. And as with all other questions, I would want to hear the pros and cons from the public and from city staff, and then go ahead and come down on it one way or the other. One idea I would have is possibly merging a K-9 unit with the county. There's no use reinventing the wheel on something that could be that expensive. I'm not sure if there's really a need for a K-9 unit with what the Sonora police are faced with, and I would want to get their opinion on that. Perhaps the departments should be merged in other ways or completely, because there are other functions of the city and county that are merged and can be done more effectively, more efficiently. Because when you think about it, the city, most people don't even know where the city limits are. They're rather arbitrary. People that think they live in Sonora and get their mail sent to Sonora, most of them are not in Sonora city limits. So there's an artificial division between Sonora and the rest of the area. And for that reason, I think we need to figure out ways to cooperate on something like a service like a K-9 unit, which the city itself might not need that often in any event.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Such, what are feelings about continuing a 2-year term for mayor?
Could you repeat that? What are my
Feelings on continuing a 2-year term for mayor?
as opposed to a longer term?
Longer term or even a 1 year? What do you think?
I don't know any reason not to continue the 2-year term. I think a 1-year term is, I think it takes a while to get your feet wet in those positions. So I think a 2-year term makes sense. And I would probably vote to limit also to a 2-year term because, there's other talent on the board and the other talent then gets to move into that leadership role.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Axelrod.
Right. I'm not sure that the mayor is really that different from other city council members, except they're the titular leader and the head of state of the city, so to speak. So I'm thinking that maybe it should be 1 week instead of 2 years. Give everybody a chance, rotate it, make everybody feel equal. But I think there is an argument towards experience just when you get rolling. After some years of some weeks or months of being city mayor, it's possible that you can get your land legs and be more prepared for the distinct functions of a mayor. And for that reason, I would say maybe it should be 1 year and then reelected for a second year, unless anybody has any reason why not, to shorten or curtail the reign of the mayor, because the mayor wasn't doing the job. Because every one of these offices, that's why we are having this forum today. It's up to the people. We have democracy, and long may it prevail. And so if somebody's not doing the job, then they should be able to be removed without any muss or fuss, and possibly go even longer than 2 years. I remember Ron Stearns was a guy who had more experience than anybody, and I would strive to be like he was.
Thank you.
Well, being mayor pro tem, and if I'm reelected, gee, you wonder what I'm going to think. Have had 2-year terms for mayor for quite a while, and you do grow into the job when you do it. I think unlike the board, I'm not going to compare with the county actually, because I'm not quite sure exactly what the board chair does. But I will say that the mayor has a great influence on what is put on the agenda as opposed to the rest of the council. So there is experience that's kind of needed in that position. So I don't, unless someone can argue that there needs to be a change to go to a 1-year term, and have a real good argument for that, other than just rearranging people. I think you do get a much better equality in the second year of a mayor's term when you have the 2-year term. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Okay, Mr. Axelrod, this one is for you.
Thank you.
How would you like to see the issue of the transient or homeless population included in the conversation? And if I could add just a bit to that question, to talk about your perception of the homeless problem here in Sonora, as well as specific ideas about how to approach the problem.
Thank you. Well, it's correctly said that the homeless problem in our town of Sonora is part of a much broader problem or challenge that's really nationwide, if not worldwide. Basically, the main problem of homeless people is that they need a place to live. And I know people diagnose that there could be drug and alcohol problems. That could be a symptom, or it could be a cause in many cases, or there could be psychological problems. And but I think it's the underlying problem is a lack of financial resources. And the fundamental problem of homelessness is not having a place to live. The city can't pass the buck, even though this is part of a bigger problem that goes far beyond Sonora and even beyond California. We cannot pass the buck about what happens in Sonora. We have to do what we can, get grants, and devise programs or improve programs that already exist so that people can have a place to live and be off the street when they need to be. And as far as transient and homeless, I don't find it to be the same thing, because a lot of the homeless people have lived here for years and they're just trying to survive. Transient people are welcome. One of the first issues I had with the city was that they were mistreating people who were coming for the fair, and they were not living here, and they were put through some hurdles that other people didn't have. Transients should be treated equally.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, I don't think you're going to find much difference amongst all of us here up on the table here. A lot of what Dave has said, I think you'll find with the other two of us where we're kind of at. I think the key part of trying to do something, well, first of all, try to do something. I think in past jurisdictions, including the city council, that's too big of a problem to try to do anything about. Don't even try. I don't believe in not try. And that's one of the reasons why I really want to be on the city's task force. But, we found out very early on that a lot of this stuff has to deal with what the county can or can't do. So a lot of services are provided by the county. So I think developing partnerships is the key to do anything for the homeless situation in our county. As it turns out, I was in a couple of meetings today, one at the hospital, talking about some of the issues that they deal with homelessness. And I think it's just a matter of bringing all these people together to try to find some sort of solution. But we do need the county's participation in that, and I think that's what we found on the city's task force level. So.
Ms. Sutton, yes.
Yeah.
As Jim and David both said, the problem with the homeless is that they don't have a place to live. We've tried to affect that problem with the city's homeless task force, and it was clear very, very early on that it needed to be expanded, not just to the county, to include the county, but to include the churches, to include the contractors, to include the homeless themselves. If you just Google cities with the most successful homeless solutions, it always involves the churches. It has involved the churches. If you want to see a perfect model, look at Salt Lake City's model for homelessness. And in terms of short-term solutions for our community, in addition to expanding the task force to involve all the key players, I would like to see outhouses available for homeless camps, because right now we are creating a terrible public health problem with people defecating just wherever they're living. And that's not a big ticket item, and it adds some humanity to their experience. We also, there's a study that talks about if you find homes for the top 5% troublemakers, and most homeless are not troublemakers, but if you find housing for the top 5%, you will pay, it will pay for itself by reducing police involvement with homelessness, hospital emergency room use, and bringing emergencies beyond their capacity with homelessness. So those are the two things I would like.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead now and do our closing statements. You'll each have 2 minutes, and we will start with Mr. Garaventa.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank you all for coming out and having the chamber provide the so-called last forum of the season, election season. Sonora is really special, I think. I'm fourth generation. I'm deeply rooted in its history, and it's something, you know, it's something that I really, really care. My grandfather had a butcher shop at the downtown, for what used to be the only stoplight in Tuolumne County, at Washington and Stockton, even before the stoplight was there. We have a unique city, and I really want to continued stewardship of that city, of our city. I don't want it to as David said early on, stole my word of modestification that I used in another forum. Yeah. You know, I really don't. You know, we can be a modern city. We can have modern amenities. We can have broadband. We can have, you know, the things. But, you know, a large part of our economy is a tourism economy. A large part of our life is our quality of life, our rural quality of life, and I don't want to see that go away. And that's the what really forms my values, forms my thinking when it comes to stewardship of the city of Sonora. And that's kind of what I bring to the table. So,
Thank you. Ms. Such?
I'd like to spend my last minutes talking about something that's so dear to my heart and something I feel much pride to be a part of, and that strengthens my skill to serve on this council. As was previously stated, I currently serve as the president of the Columbia College Foundation Board. And on that board, I've helped bring a $2 million gift, the largest gift ever to Columbia College. And partially with this gift, we are offering the promise of free college tuition to all Tuolumne County high school seniors who come to Columbia the fall after they graduate. They must attend full-time, which is 12 units each semester, and they must remain in good academic standing. Their goals can be unknown or quite individual. They can choose from a 6-month fire science program, a 1-year certificate program, a 2-year associate degree program, or a 2-year transfer program. We all realize that our students graduate from high school these days without the skills or enough education to be competitive in today's workplace. They need more, and we're making that promise to them, and we're making this promise to you. Please check out the Columbia College Promise on the college's website. This is a great form of economic development. And in addition, just all my twists and turns to different jobs and different careers were interesting in realizing their common denominator. I always learned from the ground up, and that has made all the difference. That marriage, if you will, between me, the therapist, and you, the patient, me, the manager, and you, the staff, me, the College Foundation board member, and you, the donor, or you, the student, and now between me, the councilwoman, and you, the constituent, and you, my fellow council member, and you, city administration and staff. The years of management have taught me the skill as a builder of collaborations. We all have commonalities, and that's where every conversation needs to begin. I'm a leader because I understand that a true leader has to know how to build trust. I understand how to reach out to those with whom I disagree, and a true leader has to have vision and connection. I'm so very excited about the possibility to serve you, all of you. Colette, such a good choice.
Thank you, Colette. And Mr. Axelrod.
Thank you. Well, I'm David Axelrod, just to remind you, and I want to thank again the Chamber of Commerce and everybody who's worked and volunteered their time to put this event together so that people have something to go by, because this is a nonpartisan office. You can't just vote the party line. There is no party. And as far as volunteerism, I think it's all to the good. Among other things, I've volunteered at Ironstone's Vineyards, and I presently volunteer my services down at Gallo Center for the Arts. I am a singer-songwriter and musician. A lot of that is volunteer, very few paid gigs nowadays. But what I stand for is good government and justice. That means I also want to defend property rights. I think law enforcement activities should be devoted to preventing and enforcing laws, preventing crime, and dealing with crime when it does exist so that this can be a safer community. But property rights means that the homeowners and people who live in Sonora should have the right to have their own community gardens and use their land for urban farms and gardens, including raising chickens or what have you, without having arbitrary city ordinances preventing them from doing so. And in that direction, trying to improve our local community, as I say, I took a case, a successful case. I argued in this very chamber to save the elm trees of Columbia, and we got tree experts to show that they could be saved. I also protected I was hired and did protect the carnival workers at the fair so that they wouldn't be discriminated against with being fingerprinted and having to pay a fee just to work in our town of Sonora, so that we welcome all. And I want to make Sonora that kind of a city so that we can make Sonora happy.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Axelrod.
Vote for me.
All right. And now we are going to introduce the candidates for the Board of Supervisors for District 2. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we have Ryan Campbell. He grew up on a farm near Tuolumne County. He is the son of an iron worker and a preschool teacher. He put himself through college at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and after moving back to Tuolumne County, he married the love of his life, Haley, at St. Patrick's Church in Sonora. For the past decade, he has dedicated his life to serving the people of Tuolumne County through the public library system, behavioral health department, and as former deputy editor of the Union Democrat. Currently, he is an administrative analyst for the Office of Emergency Services and is responsible for the county's tree mortality program. All right, Ryan.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Chamber, KVML, and also the Union Democrat for doing this. It's very important to get to know the people that are running for office. And to the rest of you, you have a very important decision to make. So we're facing some serious issues in the county. We've got a stagnant, maybe even declining a little bit population. We've got low medium housing income, and we have a housing crisis as well as a $5 million budget shortfall. But I'm not here to talk about all the challenges we're facing. I mean, everybody here knows what they are. What I want to talk about are the opportunities that we have. We live in the most beautiful county in the world. I'm a little biased on that, I apologize. But I love it here. We have wonderful history. We have close proximity to many recreational opportunities. We're very close to high technology centers of the state, not too close, fortunately. We have so many opportunities that we need to seize and we need to go after aggressively. And that's why I'm running. Here are my priorities. So to this end, I believe we need to focus on improving our roads, repairing the roads that we have, as well as shoring up our access to broadband internet in our county. And this specifically applies to the 2nd District, where we have many areas that lack basic broadband internet access. After that, I think that one of my main priorities is also the Library and Parks and Recreation Department. If you agree with these priorities, I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Dave Tichnell. And Dave has the deepest roots of all the District 2 candidates. As a 3rd-generation resident of Willow Springs, Dave feels the needs of the county in his soul. Dave is married, has 3 grandchildren, and has been involved in foster care for 19 years. He is a business owner and a member of SCORE. Dave.
Well, I want to say thanks to the Chamber and the radio and newspaper and everybody for being here tonight. Something's going to come out about me here in a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and admit to it right now. I am a conservative, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. And when I say I'm a conservative, it doesn't mean I hate big government. It means that I love good government, and I like government that is not corrupt and that is being run for the will of the people and knows what its limits are. And the limits are always set by the people who engage the government to do the work for us. So I'm here running in this office because I think I have a different idea of what the problems are and the way to achieve them. My opponent here, Randy Hanfeld, he does everything that he says that he does. He is the best at walking around the halls of Sacramento and back in Washington, D.C., and he does that very, very well. My thing is that I don't think that's ever going to bring us prosperity to this county. It's been able to bring us money to fix some of our immediate problems and to keep us from not surviving, but it's not the way that you set a prosperous course for the future. And hopefully tonight I'll get asked some questions that I'll be able to explain that better to you.
Thank you. And we have Randy Hanveld is our incumbent supervisor in District 2. He serves on a number of important committees locally at both the state and national levels as well. He is recognized as a leader on the Governor's Tree Mortality Task Force, establishing workable rules and policies, getting funding allocated for private lands, and county matching allocations. Randy routinely is asked to testify in front of legislative committees and influences decisions for Tuolumne County. Randy.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you, Chamber, for doing this, and especially thank you all for being here. Your attendance here is really important. You're making the decisions that count. This election has to be about leadership and making it happen. It can't be about platitudes, and it can't simply be about the basics. Everyone on the Board of Supervisors has to deal with things like roads, libraries, broadband expansion, and public safety. I mean, those are just, they're givens, and we will do those things regardless of who you elect. But it has to be about demonstrated leadership and a proven record, a solid proven record of accomplishment. I have been recognized in the state on all 4 kinds of forestry issues, which is one of our basic heritage industries here, and on rural economic development. Amelia mentioned the leader in the Tree Mortality Task Force and the issues surrounding that. We did set the policy. We set the rules. We made it work. And we got a lot of money, not just for Tuolumne County, but other counties to deal with. This is a statewide problem, certainly up and down the Sierra. California Forestry Association recognized me last year as their Conservationist of the Year for my efforts on tree mortality and forestry issues. I've also been a driver in rural economic development. Out of that program, the governor now has a program called Elevate Rural California. We're just now starting to see some things happen on that. And there was an announcement today, which I think is a big deal. You'll hear more about that, I'm sure. But there's an emphasis on the subject of rural development. I have influenced legislation, and one of them has been we saved with the BioRam program, we saved Chinese camp. So I'm asking you to vote for me to keep the momentum moving and make things happen for Tuolumne County. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Anvelt. And for our first question.
So the first question for Mr. Campbell.
Oh, me again. Great.
How would you close the shortfall of the budget for this and following years?
For this year, it's going to be very difficult because that decision is coming upon us very quickly. There is no easy answer to that. It's going to involve a combination of cuts and also looking for new areas of revenue. We have we rent many properties through the county. I think we can probably consolidate some of those rental properties, put them into some of the unoccupied offices in some of our county buildings that are owned outright. We can look at trying to encourage economic development for the future. Because right now what we're going to have to do is stopgaps in order to get us through this particular budget cycle. And that's no way to run a county government. We've been going from one crisis to another since, well, forever it seems like, but at least for the past 8 years. And that needs to stop. We need to start planning ahead, putting money aside for a rainy day, and making the kind of decisions that we need to plan for inevitable budget problems that we're going to have in the future. Right now, the rest of the state is doing fairly well economically, but our county, we find ourselves in this budget deficit. And what's going to happen when the next recession rolls around? You know, if we're already in a deficit now, what will happen in 2 years or 5 years, depending on when the next recession comes? So that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I would like to do.
Thank you, Mr. Tichenall.
Yeah, this upcoming budget is going to be tough. It's going to take, the fastest way to close a gap when you're a businessman is you have to look at your labor costs, and that's the easiest and fastest way to get your budget under control. And unfortunately, I think we're going to be looking at some furloughs or the elimination of some positions. And in talking with all of the department heads, which that's something I have done since the beginning of last summer when I decided to run. I sat with each of them, and they've all told me that they pretty much are running as lean as they can possibly run. They've tried to cross-train. They've tried to make sure that there's no fat in their departments. And so to go back to them now and say you have to find 7% more or 10% more cuts, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I think they're aware that they're going to have to start eliminating services or positions or a combination of both. But that's the way we're going to get through this immediate budget problem. Now, in order to make things better in the future, I think we have to realize that our dreams of a growing, prosperous economy, we haven't done the type of things to make that happen. And we have a declining population. We have to start fixing that. We have to start really changing some fundamental things about the way we operate this county. I talked with some guys in the road department who are scared to death that they're not going to be employed come the end of the summer, that they're going to be either furloughed or they may actually lose their positions, and they're angry about it. So a lot of them are actually looking for other jobs. So besides the people that may lose their jobs, we may be losing good people because they can see the writing on the wall. So we have a lot of work in front of us for the next several years.
Thank you.
Mr. Anvelt.
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. There is a deficit, but you heard someone say $5 million. If you were at the last Board of Supervisors meeting, it's about 3.4. Okay. I heard someone say the rest of California is doing well. That's not true. The state of California seems to be doing well, but the other counties all have the same problem. And we have the least problem of any county in our local area, certainly. El Dorado's got a 20 million plus problem, and our neighbor in the north has a big problem. Look, we've made some big investments in productivity in our IT things. We need to reap the results of those, and we expect to do that. And we will. The other issue that no one seems to talk about is CalPERS is a big issue. CalPERS, talking with some of the other counties, they're experiencing the same thing, a 57% increase in 1 year. And by 2020-21, it'll be 100% over what it was last year. You can't have this blank check and let CalPERS write on that. So I'm leading an effort along with Debbie Batista and the Rural Counties Association so that we are trying to have a meeting with CalPERS to change the system. They don't get a blank check. We write the rules, write them once, and we'll live with them. We're not repudiating the obligation. We're going to get it fixed. But that it will be another $3.9 million between now and 2021. So we're going to fix the problems at the basics and deal with the root cause.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tichenor. We have a significant amount of domestic violence. If you read the newspaper, you see it. And child abuse in our community. How would you like to spotlight and attempt to decrease these numbers?
So the question is, how would I like to help decrease domestic violence and child abuse, right? Okay.
There's a lot of it out there.
Yeah, the root causes, I think, of a lot of domestic violence, either man on woman, woman on man, woman on woman, whatever it may be, comes from a frustration. A lot of times it's because of financial problems that are happening in the family, and children are always the innocent bystanders and collateral of that kind of abuse. As a foster parent, over the last 19 years, I've seen a lot of that, and it's heartbreaking. And a lot of times it's been difficult for me helping my wife over at the shelter to not want to, get the address of these people that are abusing these children and go hunt them down and have a real serious discussion with them. But, beyond that, I think the best way to do it is through education, through trying to find out who these people are in advance, whether it's through schools, having better education to recognize the signs of abuse, through teaching everybody else what the signs are for your neighbor, for a loved one, or a relative. But we have to start fighting the problem before it becomes escalated and becomes the actual abuse that is tearing our communities apart.
Okay. Mr. Handel.
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting question because I think most people would like to just go away and stick their head in the sand and say it doesn't happen. But it's a serious problem. We're fortunate to have a great, and I have to emphasize the word great, district attorney who takes on domestic abuse issues, all kinds of abuse issues, whether it be spousal abuse, adult abuse, or child abuse. And she has a victim witness program, and that's a very strong program. And she does a great job in pushing those issues. I'll tell you where my hurt comes in this. My hurt comes in the kids. The kids that are affected by this, there's no excuse to that. We've lost our family values. We've lost a lot of things, and that I don't know how the Board of Supervisors is not going to restore family values. No way we can. But we need to take care of those kids because they become targets for human trafficking. If you don't think that's a big issue, let me tell you it is. We just had a class, which I worked with RCRC to sponsor with our law enforcement people, our probation people, and others with the schools class last Friday. Boy, was that eye-opening. It is a serious problem. We need to look after our kids, and they either become part of the criminal justice system and they become human trafficking cases. When I talk about human trafficking, I'm talking about slave labor and sex trafficking. It's a real serious problem. We need awareness, and we need to get it taken care of and not tolerate abuse. And that's not just the Board of Supervisors' job. That's your job, every single person in this room, every single person in this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Okay, Mr. Campbell.
So it's really easy to blame family values for this, but there are specific causes to child abuse and abuse within families and domestic violence. There is a direct correlation between the amount of domestic abuse and domestic violence in the home and economic opportunities. Places where people feel fulfilled, where they have opportunities for work, where it keeps them out of trouble, it keeps them off of drugs. Those are places that succeed and where we do not see as much instance of these kind of problems. It's so easy to say they're all criminal, they're all evil, let's just throw them all in jail. But that is not a way to solve the problem in our society. Because the thing is, the people you'd be throwing in jail are going to be your neighbors. And most of them will not be in jail forever. They're going to get out. And when they get out, do you want them to have the kind of opportunities to allow them to succeed? Or do you want to just let them make the same mistakes? Now, how do we give them the opportunities to succeed? I used to work I was a staff services analyst for Tuolumne County Behavioral Health. I worked on some of the drug assistance programs, some of the mental health programs, and they did a lot of good work there. And some of the programs that they addressed at that organization is people who have been gotten in trouble because of child abuse. We need to support those programs. We need to make sure that they're not cut. If we start cutting those programs and then asking ourselves, why is the rate of child abuse increasing, then that's something we need to really take a hard look at.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Camp.
Mr. Hanvelt, we'll start with you on this one. Do you agree with the recent state regulation that requires all new homes built in California must have supplemental solar power by 2020, raising the price of housing by at least $10,000 per unit?
Absolutely no. That is the craziest idea. It sounds good. It's a zero carbon, narrow net energy kind of thing, but solar doesn't work on every house. And it's much more costly than that. They say $9,500 to $10,000. I just chaired a housing policy committee today meeting, and we got expert testimony saying it's much more costly than that. It only makes sense to put solar on your house to clip the top tiers of the rate structure. The rest of it is a waste of money because it's cheaper. And we're adding cost to our regular electricity by doing what we're doing. This is a highly complex problem, and it's a politically correct answer that's coming out of Sacramento, but it's the wrong technical answer, and we need to be able to do the right things. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell?
Yeah, so I believe that law is not completely set in stone. There are the regulatory agencies are looking at it and seeing how viable it is. But assuming that it does become law, we need to look toward the future, and solar power is a future. It is clearly a cheaper energy source than any of the other more polluting energy sources. It's better in so many ways. Now, I believe with this law, there are provisions for people that, live in shaded areas where solar, they're not going to make you put a solar panel on top of your house if you live underneath trees, obviously. And so that's why we need to work with the state to make sure that the law affects people in equal ways. But in terms of the broader issue that I believe this law is trying to get to, that we do need to invest in emerging technologies like solar, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Because solar is improving, it's becoming cheaper, and it is a wave of the future. Our cars are becoming electric, so if you have a way of producing electricity with no kind of waste associated with it, I am all in favor of that. And that is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, for one, it's not a law. None of you voted for any representative that will ever vote on whether this will become law or not. It's being run through the industry. And also, it's another shining example of California and crony capitalism. How many of you had to put compact fluorescent fixtures in your house when you were building about 10 or 15 years ago, right? And all of a sudden, those were a bad idea, and they've done away with them, and we've all moved to LEDs now. There's these non-arc outlets that we have to install in homes, and I was talking to a contractor today. He said they bought a complete set of them at $45 a piece. They build a house, they put them in, the inspector comes in, and once it's signed off, they go back in, they pull them out, and they take them to the next job and install them there. And this is all an example of California and the craziness that comes out of there, and the fact that we don't have representation anymore to be able to stop these kind of crazy laws that come out. And when I talk about crony capitalism, all they have to do is identify a problem, figure out the best companies that can solve that problem, turn it into law, and then we're all paying for it. And somebody along that chain gets pretty darn rich on top of it. So I'm not in favor, as you can tell.
Thanks, Mr. Tishnell.
So the next question was submitted to the audience, or by the audience. It'll start with Mr. Campbell. The question was, do you feel that the general plan update should be postponed till next year when new supervisors are seated? And I might add to that question, what would you see as priorities and direction of a new general plan?
Yeah. So, well, I guess you can probably guess my answer. Yes, I do think it should be postponed. I think that there is potential for a great deal of change of values and direction on the board, and I think we should give the voters an opportunity to reflect that in their choice in the upcoming election. Now, in terms of how the general plan should be outlined, I'm a strong believer that Tuolumne County has established urban areas, and that most of our development should be focused around those established urban areas. I think a lot of the problems that we face in this county are related to development being allowed anywhere that is cheapest for a developer to build homes or other types of structures. We need to make sure that when we grow in a way that is best for our community. We need to protect the green spaces, because that's the reason why we live here. I mean, because it's a rural area, it's a mountainous area, and we have to keep that kind of character intact. And I think the general plan is a strong tool to do that, to make sure that we keep the regions of the county that we plan on having growth close to areas where we have had growth in the past, and not just in the middle of nowhere because somebody wants to build there.
Mr. Tichenall.
Well, I think the general plan has a lot of good stuff in it. There's a lot of designations, land use designations that have been incorrect over the years, and they've corrected a lot of that stuff. The premise of the general plan, I think, is flawed at the base, because it's built on an idea that we're going to be growing in population, and that's just not the case. That could change. But as far as postponing it, and it's been postponed way too long as it is, we need to get it out there and get the good parts of it working. Otherwise, it'll survive unchanged until the next election cycle, and you'll be asking us the same question again. So no, I think we need to put it into play and then just continue to work on it for the next time we're going to pull it out and make some edits to it.
Mr. Hanvelt.
Thank you. This is a good question. The general plan is overdue, long overdue. It was delayed because the previous version, against direct orders from the Board of Supervisors, was not put together correctly, and the environmental impact side of things was wrong. And look, a general plan is always a good idea, so you have some plan you're working on. And by the way, it's not based on fantastic growth or anything like that. It's a plan on where you put growth you can. And we need to do infill growth as much as possible, because that makes it affordable. We don't have a lot of flat land. We need to build a little higher density for affordable housing. Someone already mentioned about affordable housing doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist in the state of California or America. So right now, our team has taken the general plan, which was a huge volume, and maybe several, and gotten it down to a small level that a layman can read and understand. It's important that it be workable. It does not have any hidden pitfalls and traps in it anymore. We're going to start public hearings on that subject very shortly. In fact, the first one is Monday night at Willow Springs, 6 o'clock, along with the sheriff doing some other stuff. So be there if you want to hear about the general plan. Thanks.
All right. Let's see, who starts this time? David.
David is.
How do you think Tuolumne County Planning Commission could be improved?
Tuolumne County's Planning Commission being improved. That's a difficult question for me, because I haven't been involved in that aspect of government. I would like to see more of the meetings actually held. I'm on a list, and I get notices that the next meeting is not going to take place, and that happens. It seems like it happens a lot. Maybe there isn't a whole lot to discuss, but I think planning is very important, of course, and until there's such a time that I get more versed in what they're doing on that board, I really don't have a good answer for that question. So I'm just going to pass on it.
Mr. Hanfield.
Actually, I think the Planning Commission is working reasonably well. We have basically one appointee from each district, and then there's two at large, and we've generally agreed that one of those would, for the 5th district, one should come from the Columbia area and one should come from the Jamestown area, and of course, and then the other one is largely at large. Look, I've tried to get people to do the Planning Commission job, and here's what I tell them. I say, look, don't tell me you want the job till you've gone and attended a couple of meetings. And then tell me you're willing to do your homework. And the first 6 people that I tried to get to do Planning Commission, talk to me about it, all came back and said after they've been to 2 of them, I don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. More things should go to the Planning Commission and not come to the Board of Supervisors. Our rules should be so that they go through there and they get a ministerial application, and very few should come to Board of Supervisors. But that being said, we need people to volunteer that'll do the job. And I tell them, you don't have to agree with me. You just can't write new laws. You're not there to write new laws. You're supposed to take reasonable approaches that fit within the ground rules, and you need to approve them or deny them for a good reason. And it's not working bad, in my view. I think it's working pretty good.
Thank you.
No, I have to be honest, it's been quite a few years since I've been to a planning commission meeting, but I think in general, the governing body itself works well. It all comes down to who is on the planning commission. One area that I would like to improve is, I think, when I talk to different people in the community about the planning commission, they say, what's that? What do they do? What's on the agenda? How do I find that out? I think we as a county could do a better job in terms of outreach and educating people about what the planning commission does, because often it's very important. They have a great deal of influence over whether the vacant lot next to your house becomes a park or a strip mall. So you as voters have a very strong interest in what the planning commission does, as well as the Board of Supervisors. So I think getting more public outreach, getting more public engagement ahead of these major issues that come out, I think would be my goal in terms of the planning commission.
One more or closing?
One more.
Okay.
Mr. Hanvelt, we'll start with you. Some office seekers have made promises that they will improve roads, libraries, and all public services. At the same time, they promise to spend taxpayer funds wisely. Question is, how will you accomplish those lofty goals without raising fees and taxes?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question. The problem is overconstrained when you put it that way. There is a very, very small amount of the budget that is general fund money and is discretionary. Very small. Roads, we have some HUDA funds. I believe that's highway utilization taxing allocation or something like that, and those are virtually gone. We just went to, I went to Washington with the RCRC organization, and we got 2 years of secure rural schools. For those people who don't know what that is, that's was funded in the early 2000s. It has to be refunded every year, and half of the money goes to schools and half the money goes to roads. There's a little bit of allocation for other activities, but it's a very small amount. It goes down by 5% a year. There isn't enough to do the roads. The legislature just passed a tax, 12 cents per gallon. They don't talk about the fact that they spirited away something like 32 cents to go someplace else. And by the way, you get a chance to decide whether you want to keep that tax or not. And I very frankly don't like the proposition because it says the money is to be used for transportation. And I already am hearing that our allocation will go down. And it's going down because they're looking at spending that money on transportation elsewhere. And that, I don't know where that is, but it could be high-speed rail, it could be Caltrans highways. There has to be a solid funding base. And when you do this thing, I think they need to give us back the money that was originally allocated for roads so we can make roads work. And then you can go on. This is a more complicated question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, what a sad state of affairs we must be in if fully funded roads and libraries is considered a lofty, goal to have. To me, those are basics. Those are things we should accomplish before any of these other construction projects that we've gotten into, other obligations that this county has taken on. We need to do the basics first, and the basics are roads. The basics are things like infrastructure, broadband internet, and our libraries. Now, we are considering in this county putting libraries into a different trust that's apart from the county budget. I am vehemently against that. I believe if we can't pay for these programs that support our children and basically everybody, I mean, not just children, the elderly, people who don't have access to computers, we need these facilities. And the reason why I talk a great deal about roads, broadband internet, and our libraries is because I go out into the community. I've been doing it for the past 5 months, knocking on doors and talking to people. And that's what they tell me they want. And so what I'm doing is reflecting the priorities of our community. How do we pay for it? We're going to have to make some sacrifices. It's going to take cuts in other departments, other areas. Maybe some of the projects that we've planned for the future are going to have to be scaled back. But the overarching concern, the overarching idea is that if we could find money to build the Juvenile Justice Center and to build the prison, we can find money for roads.
Mr. Tichenor?
Well, Randy just made some of the points that I'm going to talk about. And it's no secret out there that I support the state of Jefferson. And when I say I support the state of Jefferson, a lot of people don't really understand what that means. The state of Jefferson is only interested in two things. One is restoring representation, restoring the constitutionally guaranteed republic that we're supposed to have. We're not supposed to be run by an oligarchy. We're not supposed to be run by a supermajority of Democrats in Sacramento. What Randy talked about is their interests aren't in the rural areas. Their interests are in the urban problems, and they'll never give a hoot about us because they don't have to. We don't have any voices when it gets down there. Randy does go to Sacramento a lot, and he does try to ask, and I'm going to use the word beg, for money to come back so that we can try to solve some of our problems at least. But my ideas are the only way we're ever going to become a prosperous county again is taking back our control of our natural resources, taking back control of our forests, of our agriculture, of our mining industry, all the things that we have up here. We don't have a whole lot of other things as a natural resource. So if we can't control those, and if we're not allowed to have those things to build our economy on, then we're always going to be begging for scraps from the master's table. I want to set a new course and try to change that.
All right, thank you very much. All right, now for our closing statements, and we will start with Mr. Campbell. You have 2 minutes.
All right, well, thank you very much. So my wife and I both work full-time. We live up kind of right in the center of Phoenix Lake, Crystal Falls, and Bellevue Oaks. So we're kind of right smack dab in the middle of the population center of the county. So we get to drive on the roads and talk to people a lot and see kind of what's going on in the community. And we work hard. And we're raising 3 beautiful little girls. Well, I say beautiful because I'm completely biased again on that subject. But they are what informs the decisions that I make with regard to what I'd like to see in our community. And what I'd like to see is that we have the framework in place for them to succeed, for them to get an education, get the kind of schooling and the kind of support that they need to get an education and then move on, get careers, and work here in Tuolumne County and contribute to what we have here and the great tradition that we have here. And the way I think we should do that is by looking at what this community looks like. You know, the Board of Supervisors has very little power to really create jobs. Like, we're not job creators. We create opportunities. And until we address our basic systemic infrastructure problems in this county, I think it is very difficult for us to even talk about economic growth. And so that's what I'm concerned about. Now, right now I work for the Office of Emergency Services. My main responsibility is the county's tree mortality project. When I take down a tree, or when our project goes out to an area and then cuts down a tree, that costs us on average $350 to $450. If you were to do that as an individual, it would cost you $1,200 to $3,000 if you need a crane. I mean, anybody that's ever had a tree cut down on their own knows how expensive it can be. But this is a perfect example of how a county program, well managed and well administered, can provide good outcomes for our community. I have a track record of integrity and good stewardship of taxpayer dollars, and that's why I'm asking for your vote. And thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
My name is Ryan Campbell.
Mr. Tichenor?
All right. I love this county. Raised up here, redneck, out four-wheeling on the weekends, hunting, fishing, doing all those kind of things. I also lived in a lot of other parts of the country. Lived in Santa Barbara for a while, then lived in Washington, D.C., actually, for a number of years doing work for the government. And I always came back here as fast as I could for any vacation time that I might have accrued, or any time I could get a chance to get back here. And I started a business down in the valley and decided eventually to move it back up here because hated driving to the valley every day. So, I'm really interested in making sure Tuolumne County remains for a long, long time. We need to be more self-reliant. If there was a big catastrophe in California tomorrow where we got cut off from urban areas and stuff, how long can we survive without that help from the state of California? And I think we could, if we had the right planning in place, we could be self-reliant, at least much more self-reliant than we are now. And so I want to see us work towards, getting back to that. I want to see us, I'm a big law enforcement supporter. I believe we have to have the jail. I've been on the tour of the old jail. It's pathetic. I believe we have to have that juvenile detention facility now. Maybe when we were trying to do it as a 3-county thing, we could have made some other choices. But now that we have it, I've seen the positive effects that have come out of there. We had a young woman that was in the shelter that we had to have shipped down there. And in less than 3 months, they rehabilitated her, and she's now back in Soulsbyville School again. So I know the people that are running that place are doing the right thing. So we've got a lot of good things going on in Tuolumne County, but we're not making the right preparations for the far future. And that's why I want to start getting us on that course and make Tuolumne County be able to be better on its own. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Mr. Hanbelt.
Thank you, Amelia. Okay, so decision time is on us right now. Early voting has started. The formal election date is just over 4 weeks away, but most of the voting will be done long before that because most of our voters vote by mail. So, do you want someone who can only make empty campaign rhetoric talk about simple basics and platitudes, or you want someone who has a proven track record of leadership, who knows how to get things done, and has a solid record of achievement? The choice is really that simple. It's naive to think that anybody can step into one of these supervisor jobs and become effective on day one. It takes a couple of years before you even figure out what the job's about. And that's if you've done the necessary homework ahead of time. And I don't think either of my opponents have done that. Unlike cities, counties are political subdivisions of the state. And thus, the real threats, the real challenges, and the real opportunities are state and federal level. And the only candidate who can effectively push for near-term solutions and action is Randy Hanvelt. And I'm doing that right now. I do it every day, and I do it for you. I have no other motivation or goal than to build a solid path to prosperity for the citizens of Tuolumne County, and that includes public safety. If you've been paying attention, you know that the governor issued a new executive order today on forest health and forest management. He added $96 million to his proposed budget for a total of $256 million to move forward on these forest health initiatives. We have never seen that happen in this state before. It fits right into the work that I've been doing with the county and the Forest Service with our master stewardship agreement and taking charge of our forest and making it healthy again and achieving some economic development. I received 2 phone calls from high-level state officials so that I would know about this executive order before it was released. We've never seen that happen before either. Tuolumne County is at the table and not on the menu. We're developing the menu, setting the policies, and to some extent the rules by which we play. That is effectiveness. To do otherwise, you become a victim, and that's rarely a good thing. So here's the bottom line. If you want to drive, vote for Randy Hanvelt. If you want to go along for the ride, vote for one of my challengers. So ask your vote in this election. I work for you, and I'm Randy Hanvelt, and I approve this message.
Thank you, Mr. Hanbelt. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so our final race of candidates for the evening are for the Board of Supervisors, District 3. We have 4 amazing faces up there. And our first one is Aaron Rasmussen. And Aaron is a forestry technician and a disabled combat veteran. So Aaron.
Thank you. Good evening. My brother Joe is here tonight. My son Wesley is over there in the front row. Hopefully he's not bothering you when he's grabbing cookies. Sorry about that. As Emily said, I'm a disabled veteran. I'm a husband to my high school sweetheart, and I'm a stay-home dad and a recent college graduate, paid for by my service for the country. Thank you. I may not be the the biggest expert up here, the wealthiest, or the smartest person running, but I am the most honest, no nonsense, frugal, and the most hometown running. When you grow up poor, you appreciate and care for everything and everyone around you a little bit more. Anyone with common sense, commitment, can fix any of our problems. Those of us that live day by day, paycheck by paycheck, understand what it is to make difficult decisions on problems. Apparently, our county is lacking some of that understanding. Herein lies the problem. I humbly ask for your vote as a public servant, and not to vote for a politician, not to vote for someone who thinks that they know better than you. If you do vote, please vote with your heart and don't vote based on propaganda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And next we have Anaya Kirk. Anaya is 33 years old. He's a second-generation Tuolumne County resident. He works as a public servant supervising correctional counselors at the prison and serves as a youth director for Chapel in the Pines. Anaya married his high school sweetheart, Amy, who is an elementary school teacher. Together, they are raising 2 children in District 3. Anaya.
All right, well, I've been sitting all day, so I'm going to stand. So, first of all, tonight, I just want to address the hot topic. Anaya, do you have the time to be a supervisor? And Evan, who so graciously was concerned, he wrote an article in the newspaper. Yes, the gist of it is I do, and I do know how to raise my children. The state of California has approved me to run as a supervisor. My warden is in full support of me running. I have a flex schedule. I am able to do the job. Royce did it for 8 years, all while building a super successful business. And I'm proud to say that through my research, there are plenty of county supervisors in the state of California who also have full-time jobs. Imagine that. So we all know what the issues are. We've taught, this is like our 5th meeting of issues. What I want to know is who's going to be a leader representing those issues. Why did I run for this race? I was a citizen concerned about the future of our community, and I was invited to Evan Royce's campaign earlier in the year to help him get reelected. And it was at that campaign meeting where I tried to change his course, his policy regarding big marijuana cultivation. And when I realized that he was not hearing my concerns or those of many people which he represented, that's when I decided I'm going to pull papers and I'm going to give the voters a very clear choice. So the gist of why I'm here is because I love my community. I love my children. I love this place that I was born. In my heart of hearts, I just want to see us thrive and not become the next Calaveras County mess. And we'll talk about all the other issues, but that is why I'm here. I'm here to lead. I'm a leader. I've been doing this since I was 19 years old when I gave my life to Christ. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Anaya. And our next candidate is Merv Cancillo.
Close enough.
Oh, I was trying. Darn it. Okay, he's lived in Tuolumne County for 47 years, with 27 years living in Twainhart. He has worked as a teacher at Curtis Creek School for 34 years. He is married to Rose and has a 27-year-old son, Garen. He volunteers his time as a Teen Works mentor, a member of the Motherlode Martin Luther King Committee, and goes on mission work in Mexico, Peru, and will be going to Kenya this July. Merv is paying for the majority of his campaign expenses. He is not beholden to any special interest, and he will represent the rich and the poor with an equal voice. Merv.
Thank you, Amelia.
You're welcome.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my motivation on why I'm running for this seat. At this juncture in my life, I'm ready to serve and make a difference in a new setting. I have poured out my heart and soul to be the best teacher that I can, to my students, to parents and staff. Why leave the school where parents are satisfied with my work? I'm respected by my colleagues, and I get hugs from kids every day. Why enter the political arena where there will be a target on my back? Serving others has been a calling my entire life. It's time for me to stand up and fight for our community. We need living wage jobs that provide opportunities to raise families in Tuolumne County. We must be business friendly, and we need to create an environment that supports smart growth in order to develop affordable housing and a strong local economy. If I am elected, I will retire from my teaching job and be a full-time supervisor. I will be taking a $30,000 a year pay cut. Why take a $30,000 a year pay cut to be a supervisor? Making money is not the most important part of my life nowadays. Serving God and serving others is paramount. Serving God, serving others is paramount. To be an effective supervisor, I will bring my experience in leadership roles to the table, my passion for helping others, and expertise in building relationships. As a full-time supervisor, I will be part of the process of helping the business community thrive, prioritizing funds to fix our deteriorating roads, protecting our senior citizens, and planning for a better tomorrow.
Thank you, Merv. And now we will learn about Lori Sylvester. She has been a resident of Tuolumne County since 1961. She has attended and then taught at local schools. She will leave Columbia College to be a full-time supervisor. Lori is prepared to tackle the tough issues we face, believing that which is good for the citizen is also good for a robust business climate. Lori is dedicated to promoting locally owned and small businesses, and she looks forward to diminishing obstacles that business owners face. Please welcome Lori Sylvester.
Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, our panel, and everybody that has showed up for this evening. I appreciate it. An informed electorate makes for a strong democracy. I'm going to mention, too, that Tuolumne Park and Rec today mentioned that they're going to sponsor a District 3 candidate night on May 21st at Memorial Hall, 6 p.m. California was just declared the 5th largest world economy, and Tuolumne County has tremendous assets, and we're situated in a place that has potential to share in that economy. But with our natural beauty, having the 4 seasons, the history, the recreation, and those are all excellent draws for tourism, but add that to our cultural arts and entertainment and a variety of small businesses, and this is a great place to call home. I've been here since 1961. And that said, we have a loss of population and must address the future needs. So county government needs to provide the vital support system for our needed infrastructure. And additionally, I do believe that broadband and competitive internet are essential for every home and business. And my visiting sister put it bluntly. She said, quote, "I could not live here and work from home with the internet problems that you have. Young professionals expect excellent cell and internet coverage and would not think of relocating to a place hampered by poor service. So we have to consider what kind of services we have." So I see the lights flashing, so I'll just stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll start with the first question.
So the first question for Mr. Rasmussen. County Supervisor is a nonpartisan office, but oftentimes it's highly political. Do you support the County Supervisor's recent resolution stating that Tuolumne County is not a sanctuary jurisdiction?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. If you want me to expand on that, it's the bottom line is that's the rules of the country. But it's almost contradictory when we talk about things like marijuana, right? Federal laws has said no to that. Unfortunately, both of these issues, whether it be marijuana or be sanctuary cities, are both affecting California, and we got to find out the best way that's going to move us forward, best way it's going to work for us. Unfortunately, when it comes to illegal immigration, they are illegals, and is there a crime element to that? Yes, possibly. Not so much here in Tuolumne. That was discussed at the last Board of Supervisors. But the bottom line is you support the Constitution first, you support the Constitution of California second. Thank you.
Mr. Kirk.
Yeah, so the question was sanctuary state. Yes, I do agree with it. The fundamental job of government is the safety and security of its citizens. So allowing people to come in through our borders, you're under you're basically allowing to jeopardize the safety and security of the people. Working in a prison system, I can tell you firsthand, the majority of inmates who I review hundreds a day are either descendants or are either illegal immigrants or direct descendants of illegal immigrants. And they're flooding our prison systems, they're flooding our communities, committing crimes. So the simple answer is yes. The sovereignty of our nation is to protect itself. So, and if you went to my website, before the board made a stance on that, I had it published, that as a county supervisor, I would have led the way to try and get that initiative on the board, but I'm glad that they did. And I'm glad that we're just making a stand that we do stand for safety communities. So, yep.
Mr. Cancia.
Yes, I'm grateful for the board at the last board meeting to adopt the sanctuary, that Tuolumne County is not a sanctuary county. I am a person of an immigrant. My parents are immigrant. There is a legal pathway to do this correctly, and I support that wholeheartedly. With that said, I'll go back to the initial part about nonpartisan, and that's going to be my strong suit for me, is to be able to represent everyone, whether you're Republican or Democrat, young or old, rich or poor, you will have an equal voice with me.
Ms. Sylvester.
Thank you. On sanctuary state, I suspect that this is going to be adjudicated by the state of California since the federal government's involved. And I realize that places like San Diego have the highest impact. And since California is subject to the federal law and the courts will settle this, I don't believe there's really any reason for Tuolumne County to use resources on issues that we really can't affect. I couldn't see from this what was the effect of us taking that up. A Board of Supervisor meeting, depending on how many county heads are in the department at the time, used to figure out it was almost $2,000 an hour. And what I'd like us to see us address is the things that we can affect. Insurance that's being lost, fire clearance, talk about the roads, talk about the general plan, and the many, many other departments and issues we have in front of us. I find it frustrating when partisan issues are brought up specifically to create red herrings in a campaign year. And I'd like to know from the people that brought it up, what exactly were the impacts in this county? Our sheriff talked about the small number of people that he'd been putting in jail that actually were subject to the sanctuary. I'm not for illegal immigration, but I'm also not for squandering our public resources on red herrings and issues that really we can't affect. San Diego's big enough. They've got the big guns. Let them go after it and let them put their resources into that issue.
Thank you, Lori. Next question.
Oh, yeah, it's on. Mr. Kirk, are you pro-business growth and development? Your stance and reasoning.
Yes, I'm pro-business and good development. From the research I've had, I might be off a little bit on the exact numbers, but I believe the majority of the county, I believe 77% of it is federal and state owned. So a lot of people are concerned about protecting our rural way of life. Believe me, it's going to be protected when 77% of land's already, federally state owned. So it's about infilling, it's about using what we have wisely. And when it comes to pro-business, absolutely. And people probably laugh thinking, oh, Kirk works for the state. What does he know? He works for the government. I'll tell you, when I got furloughed for 3 years because the private industry was doing bad, believe me, I was hoping that the private industry got better. So private industry is what fuels the economy. Innovation, businesses, that is what pays all of our jobs. Teachers, government, everyone up here works for the government, which is pretty funny. So I have a brother who is run 4 businesses. My father's from the private sector. My mother's from the private sector. My grandfather from the private sector, who's a World War II vet. I've been brought up, and I've been working since I was 13. Believe me, the business is where we generate funds. It's where our tax revenue is going to come from. My job as a supervisor is to make sure I cut any red tape for any business in this community who's trying to start and thrive. And I'll be your biggest advocate because I will listen to you, and believe me, yes, I'm pro-business. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you. Pro-business. For me, one of the things we need to do, besides attracting new businesses, is to retain businesses. One of the issues that we need to be addressing is ultra power down in Chinese camp. They're in a 5-year contract. First year is gone. They have 4 more years to go. That business, which is an environmentally clean business, supports 25 employees, $3.5 million in salaries. What we need to do is figure out how are we going to keep Ultra Power open for many more years to come. Once they go, what we're going to have is not just a loss of jobs, we're going to have some environmental disaster coming our way because the people from the valley will be burning their almonds and their walnuts, and all that smoke is going to come up to here. What they provide now is 99% of what they burn is captured through their smokestack and all their filters. What we need is to figure out how to keep them open. I will do what I can to support them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sebastian?
Okay, on business, I'm a big fan of small business and locally owned business. When I get out my wallet, I vote with my pocketbook. Every dollar that I put into our local businesses are the dollars that turn over again and again in the community. When we have really large corporations and a downturn in economics, it's those large corporations that often find it convenient to leave our communities, and we had that happen here. And when they left, we lose a lot of jobs. However, the local people that run the small businesses amazingly cling on to life and keep going, and we need to support our local businesses. The small businesses tend to generate higher incomes for people in a community than the long non-local firms, so I really want to make sure that we give them what they need. But I'm not kidding when I tell you that every business and every home really needs to have very good interconnectivity. So we need to make sure that our roads are in good shape. People need to be able to get to the businesses and go to and from, but we also need interconnectivity. Oh, I was afraid that was flashing at me. I apologize. But anyway, what's good for the citizens is also good for business. So we are here for citizens, but when we have a good, robust community, and many of these government jobs that we're watching also in the county, remember that if we lose a government employee, that's 7 times effect in the community. Their money turns over 7 times. So every time we have cutbacks, we're losing other small businesses. We really need to work hard on keeping a good level of funding with our county employees, for instance.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Rasmussen.
It's a very difficult question. We can only provide the opportunities that was said before to produce businesses. But the thing of it is, we're never going to have the small businesses if we don't have the shared corporations coming in as well. I was one of the 900 families that was laid off when the fiberboard mill shut down. Half the mill shut down, 900 families out of work. My dad had to get retrained, go down to Modesto, and it's a difficult question, and it's a difficult situation when you have big industry cutting back. That's going to affect trickle-down small businesses. So unless we can start working on our resources that we have back into the forest, whether that be selling the resources or cleaning up the resources to the Forest Service, those are good jobs, big type corporation jobs, big ones, that will then help the smaller businesses on Main Street and come into these empty buildings that are everywhere. So it has to come big, and we got to trickle it down. Let's get back to our roots. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cancio, we'll start with you on this one. A little similar to the one we just had. If you could bring any manufacturer or retailer to Tuolumne County, who would you pick and why?
I'm going to go with the manufacturer because they're more suited for our community. So I would encourage Sandvik to come here and add another section of their company. We have one that's up the road, successful. I'm going to say, hey, we don't need another new one. If I had my way, I would tell Sandvik from overseas, come and build us another one, because we've proven to you that we're good workers here. We are dependable, and we can provide what you need for a good product. And so Sandvik is one way to go. Thermotech, MRL Thermotech would be another one. So those machinists are hard workers. They're honest paying jobs, good paying jobs, and that's the kind of business that I would like to come to Tuolumne County.
Mr. Sylvester.
And I only get to choose between manufacturer and retailer?
You can choose whatever you like.
Oh, okay, great. Well, a lot of us that own homes have difficulty finding enough people that are available to answer calls. I'm on a pretty long waiting list to have my roof done. When the economy was down, I made sure that I was spending my local money to help out these local businesses. But right now, I'm having a very hard time getting people for some of the very things that I need on my home or around the house at all. So calling on businesses that come. So I worry about not even having enough. We have a lot of wonderful plumbers, but again, I've run into waiting lists for some of the larger projects. And I would encourage more people and their small businesses to open up here. Retailers, manufacturer. I really think that Merv had a very good answer in talking about like precision instruments, because we do have some like Kinematic and some of the others that have been attracted into the county. I did work with the tribe in helping to bring the largest business that we have in District 3, and that's Black Oak Casino. So I worked to help break some of the log jams that they faced. So whichever businesses we can attract, I do work really hard to make sure that our county employees and our county departments collaborate and coordinate to get their needs met, to get them up and running. We had a very short window frame to open the casino, and we managed to get it done. So getting it done, but I can't say specifically. I would love to see more people that work on homes to come here.
Thank you, Lori.
Mr. Rasmussen?
Yes, so I remember the question is what businesses, retailers. Well, when we look at retailers like Dollar General and Les Schwab, that's not doing anything good for our community. It's taken away from the smaller businesses. So here we go and trying to decide winners and losers. And we've officially done that by bringing in big corporations in this aspect. The only other thing I could add to industry is we just need more hardworking jobs, the jobs that people put their hands to, whether it be metalworking, woodworking, construction. Those are going to be our biggest fit, our biggest success. So I would like to see more of that coming. But you also, it's not just about industry, it's about jobs and driving those. And we, as a county, if we were to beef up our road department, beef up our facilities, that would also be a twofold industry that can help us. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kirk?
All right, I'm going to go back just a little bit to the first business question, if I'm pro-business. Forgot to mention, I am endorsed by Frank and Sally Helm of Dodge Ridge. They have plans to eventually make some snowmaking equipment and also turn that mountain into a bike resort. So I would help facilitate that. Also, tourism, $230 million a year is about what it brings in. That's huge business up the 108 corridor. It's huge for my district. Continue to go after that. And forests, you know, throughout this process, I've been learning that the biggest asset that we have as our community is our natural resources. Our forests are, you know, the trees per acre are supposed to be 50 to 75 trees per acre, and we have over 1,000 trees per acre. We have one of the greatest assets in our backyard, but yet the state and the feds have put a grip on our neck, not allowing us to go up there and tap into our resources. If you study Germany, they're the size of Wyoming, and yet the billions of boards per feet that they create off their lumber industry and how many jobs that creates is amazing. The problem is we got a bunch of people up in Sacramento who live in the cities who have no idea how to manage our forests, and they put these regulations on solar panels. I built my own home last year, so believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I had to get my plans in before the insulation thing went in to save money. But yet, so we have all these codes and regulations, but yet our forests are mismanaged, and when we have a rimfire that goes off, we put more CO2 into the air than all these regulations combined do by taxing and restricting the citizens. So amen to what Randy Hanvelt said about all this money coming in. I want to make sure that we are part of a pilot program, that we go up into our forests, and that we can show the state that we can manage our forest properly. And that's going to put hundreds and perhaps thousands of people in our own community to work up there. And we're going to do it right, and we're going to make a lot of money off it. And that money is going to go back to our roads, because most of our money, am I out of time?
Yes, you are. Well, no. It didn't restart, so it was
Okay.
fine. So
Anyways, amen to forest.
you're done now, though.
All right.
You've used your minute.
Ms. Sylvester, next question for you. Many local office seekers have promised they want to improve the roads, libraries, and all public services, at the same time promising to spend taxpayer funds wisely. Do you think it's possible to accomplish lofty goals such as this without raising things like fees and taxes?
Okay, so you said the roads and promises. That's kind of where you are.
Roads, libraries, yeah, I want to improve public services.
So my interest certainly are the roads, and I do believe that we need them to have a good economy. We have $5 million coming in from the state gas tax, the 12-cent one. I feel like it would be irresponsible as a supervisor to stand up and say, I want to overturn that because we don't like the way they're spending other money. There's money that I do not like the way it's spent in the nation, but I know that we have $5 million coming in here to spend on local roads, and I think that it needs to be done. Our roads have been torn up in District 3 from having the tree mortality, thank goodness, in there. We already had bad roads, and they're super impacted by the tree mortality. So what do I want to do? I want to go after some of the $256 million that Randy had talked about, but I knew that it was coming through the pipeline too. I'm glad to hear that executive order was passed. But I'd make the case that we need to talk to the state because of our impacts in our federal land and state land, that they've also impacted our roads. So we really do need to look at some of the sources of how these things get impacted. I'm a big fan of libraries and saying that that is a priority. I think that it is a matter of setting priorities. It's often I see that we use some of those as the sacrificial lambs because it's what people get upset about and say, well, they love their libraries, they'll pay for that, but nobody's going to have a bake sale to pay more for a juvenile detention center or something like that. So I'm really strong, and I am strong on protecting these basic services. I don't see them as frivolous at all. Solid funding base when I need to work on better funding. When there's state impacts, the 77%, as Anaya mentioned, is accurate on federal lands. And where we had federal and state lands, we have impacts from visitors, and those impacts should also be shared by the state of California because we offer the very beautiful places
Thank you,
for
Lori.
people to come to.
Mr. Rasmussen. Question is, many office seekers locally have promised that they want to improve the roads, libraries, and all public services, at the same time promising to spend taxpayer funds wisely. Do you feel that these lofty goals can be accomplished without raising fees or taxes?
Yes, I believe they can. Simple question, simple answer. The thing that I see is that I don't want to be up here in the next 4 years or out there in the crowd saying roads again, or saying facilities, or saying we need libraries fixed. We've been saying this for years. It needs to stop. Absolutely needs to stop. County needs to reorganize, reprioritize what our job is up here. Our job is not to fund luxury items we don't have the money to. One of those luxury items is a visitors bureau. We're not in the advertising business, nor are we in the healthcare business. There's certain things that we shouldn't be in business for, and we definitely got messed over when the county offered us a grant for this juvenile detention center when we know it's a losing business. I say shut the lights off, send everybody home, and send those keys right back to Sacramento, because we cannot afford that at this time. And as far as when it comes to Visitors Bureau, I've been beat up about this a lot. People have been coming up here, spending their money for decades. If you give me $1 million, I'm going to come back to you next year and tell you why you should give me another $1 million. It's just ridiculous spending. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Mr. Kirk.
So, yes, I think everybody up here would love to say, yes, we could do that. I think the difference that I bring to the table is I'm pretty transparent. Working in a prison for 11 years, you kind of learn to just cut through the BS. So I honestly think that your roads are going to get worse before they get better. Why? Because the money that we receive from the state is a gas is a gas tax, okay? So whatever they give us, that's what we're left with. The problem is we don't, this whole state of Jefferson thing keeps getting brought up. The problem is we don't have fair representation at the table. So we're going to keep begging, we're going to keep asking for more and more. And I mean, the best we can do is be good stewards of what we have. So I've talked to some of the guys at the road crew. And I've said this before, simple, basic maintenance things that we can do for our roads are go from a cold patch to a hot patch system. I've been hearing that we haven't been cleaning our drainages on our roads or our culvert pipes for years. I have to go across my street every winter and clean out the drainage. Otherwise, it goes over the road or under the road, and I get potholes. So, we'd all love to make just everything perfect, but it's not going to happen. My job as a supervisor is, look, when I built my house, I spent so much time making sure that the foundation was done correctly, because everything you build upon that house is going to be a reflection. So we keep trying to build a house on maybe a broken foundation. So as a supervisor, what I do at work is I trust, but I verify everything that comes across my desk. That's my job. That's my job on the line. So as a supervisor, I'm going to trust people, but I'm going to verify. I'm going to go to the heads of the departments and verify a lot of this information and get to the root of the cause. Otherwise, we're going to be here every 4 years having the same debates, and it sounds like it's been going on for years. So I'll be in and out. I'll do my job, and if you like me, great. If not, I don't care. I'm gonna do my job.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk.
And Mr. Cancia.
Thank you. I would like to reframe that question. Promise. I don't promise, because when you promise, that means you're going to get to keep it. Mm-hmm. What I can do and tell the voters, and that's what I tell people when I meet them, is that what I can do is work hard. Work hard for your benefit. Work hard to bring the stakeholders together to address the issues. And the issues for District 3 is roads, more roads, better roads. That's all they want. Can I deliver for them? I don't know. Will I work hard for them? Yes. We have $14 million budgeted or going to get for the next 5 years through the SB1 money. We need to figure out how to prioritize that, work with the road departments, but not just with them. Bring in the people from Miwok, Long Barn, Pinecrest, Twain Harte, Ponderosa Hills, and Tuolumne, and say, look, we want representatives from these communities. We want to know which of these roads should we address first. We need to get them involved. We need to have their buy-in as well. We can't just go out there and do things willy-nilly. There's got to be a plan. And with a good plan, you need involvement from the community. And that's what I would bring to the table. Let's get the people together. Let's get the department workers together. What can we do to solve the problem?
Thank you, Merv.
All right. Mr. Rasmussen, do you believe we have a housing crisis in Tuolumne County? Do we need more low-cost, low-income housing? And how do we do this?
Well, I think it all goes back to Sacramento. Evan, I've said this before, as a contractor, he worked the last 8 years. I mean, that's what he drove on his campaigns, is fixing housing, getting construction, and we're just not getting it from Sacramento. At the end of the day, when it comes to the county, what I've heard is conflicting information. I hear from the county, we have a declining population. We have contractors don't want to come up here and spend the money because they don't get the return on what they build. But then I also hear of people actually going up to the window, the county window, wanting to do a project and just getting turned off by the customer service alone. So there's a couple different issues there. I am actually in the course of looking for my own home. Recently, we rented a beautiful place up in Twain Harte. And it was sad to come to find out first of the month that I need to find a new place. Within a few hours, sending some text messages out to some people, my friends, I had already looked at 2 places in between 3 debates last Thursday. It was crazy. Again, my success in that is being in the community. But at the same time, when we look at other housing that's costing us more money, we have people from out of town buying vacation homes and grabbing up the market, making the market go up, but also bringing in crime. I can't tell people what not to do with their time and their money, but the basic thing is we just need to get housing in these development projects actually through. We need to stop talking about it, and if we need to bring incentives with county money to get these contractors up here to make the money that they need to. That's something that we have to do. We can do as a county. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kirk.
Well, I don't really want government involved in my life in deciding what's going to be affordable and what's not. When it comes to affordable housing, yeah, there's an issue, but from my research, the only thing I can think of is, I know the state changed some ordinance laws where they allow people to build accessory buildings. So with the general plan coming up, I want to make sure that our ratio moving forward, depending on the size of your lot, I want to make sure that that ratio isn't precluding people from building those accessory dwellings. You build those accessory dwellings, you're going to have people have a second home, younger people can move into that, save up enough money for down payment for a home. Or if we got an older population like we do, they can rent that house out for a healthcare provider. I'll just tell you my personal story. I worked really hard to get where I am in life. When I first got out of college, my income was $32,000 a year, and that was when homes around here were $500,000. Me and my wife looked at each other. We said, we're never going to be able to afford a home, but we're going to save like the way I've been brought up. We're going to save, we're going to budget, and we're going to live within our means. And we saved and we bought a house. And over the course of 7 years, we saved up money and we paid land. And then I was getting ready to build a 2,100 square foot home last year. I couldn't afford it because it was too much money. So I had to build a 1,197 square foot home. So if people want to afford a home, do what I did. I stayed home with my 2 little babies when they were little, and my wife went back to college and worked hard. And then after college, she got her teaching credential and became a school teacher. We lived off my income and we saved her income. You want affordable housing? Get affordable careers. Better yourself, work hard. It's an American dream, but you have to go after it. And nothing's going to be given to you in this life. You have to work for it.
Thank you.
Do we have a crisis for housing for young families? Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are we going to do about that? 30 years ago, we had young families at Crystal Falls, Sonora Meadows, Phoenix Lake. So we had developments that was affordable. We need to look back and say, how do we get that done? What can we do now to get that done so we can develop, the key word here is develop, housing communities that's affordable. What's that going to take? It's going to take people to get together and come to the table. It's going to take the building industry to come to the table. It's going to take the responsible growth people to come to the table. It's going to take the planning department to come to the table and say, we need affordable housing. How can we do that so that our young families can stay? I'm in the age now where I'm ready to retire. I have my own home. But what's scary about this is we're going to be gentrified. We need a vibrant community. We need people, young people in our community as well, and they need to stay so that they can be part of a healthier community. I don't want to be just a bunch of old peoples like myself walking around town. I want little kids laughing and running and playing everywhere. And young families, they make our community vibrant. So we gotta speak up for them. We gotta figure this out, or we're gonna just be a bunch of old people walking around downtown, and that's not gonna be good enough for my expectations. Sorry.
Thank you, Merv.
One of the good things about having a lot of candidates running for any given district is sharing of ideas and bringing them out. And I'm happy to give away ideas. I'm a teacher, Merv's a teacher, and we share our ideas all the time. So thanks, Anaya, for covering all the points I've been covering lately. I appreciate that. The first part, the second part belongs to you. But the small housing interspersed, I talked about when I went into office and talked to Ken Marks. And we had both shared the opinion that it's really good not to have low income all put together, because sometimes small housing units are thought to be low income, but starter units. I mean, I got a starter unit in Tuolumne, and that I said it does make sense for us to have some of the small units added to land where we can support that. So all those are ideas that I felt that are really strong, and I do appreciate other people also feeling that way, because I've heard other people say things I strongly agree with. So I really think that addressing the small housing, interspersing it throughout the county, also possibly looking at tiny housing, which takes working with the state to get a different level of approval for some tiny housing units and see what we can do to locate them near transportation and other sources for people that don't perhaps have their own vehicle. Because that's one of the expenses that you, if you can afford to have a small house, sometimes you can't also afford transportation or owning your own vehicle.
Thank you, Lori.
Sure.
Last
Kirk,
question.
we'll begin with you. Please share your thoughts about the juvenile hall and the prison that's under construction.
The jail, prison state, jails county.
Yeah.
So with the juvenile hall, I would have been right there with Royce years ago when he had his dissenting vote. And the reason being is I was a juvenile probation officer for Merced County dealing with youth, the gangs down there. I've been working in the prison system 11 years. And what we're seeing in the prison world, or in law enforcement basically, is we're seeing the pendulum swift. We've been hard on crime. In the last decade, the pendulum has been going south. We've been decriminalizing crime. So if you would have asked me 5 years ago, 10 years, whenever, what do you think? I would have said, no, don't build it. And here's why. Because in the future, it's going to be very hard to lock a juvenile up. Fast forward, the laws have changed. The counties have bailed out. Now we're stuck with the juvenile hall, which houses barely any individuals. Also, the reason why I'm against it is being a probation officer and working in the prison, and everything I do is policy and procedure. I have to track average length of stays. The average length of stay at our juvenile hall is 43.4 days. You can't rehabilitate anybody in 43.4 days. So I would rather see that money go to early childhood prevention, go to our schools, go to our county and rec. That's where I'd rather see the money. Now, moving forward towards the jail, I wish we would have built the jail before we would have built the juvenile hall. I think there's a reason why the hall may have been built first, and that's unfortunate. But to be honest with you, I'm pro law enforcement. However, I will not make a decision that's going to keep putting this county in the red. So we need to come up with some solutions on how to generate some funds, because believe me, we need a jail, but I'm not going to put us in the red any further.
Thank you.
As for the juvenile hall, let's go back to the intent. The intent was to have our juveniles here so they can be close to families, so that we can provide a better service, so that they don't go back on the streets and do the same thing again. The intent was good, and I commend them for that. However, it's not penciling out. But I also know that new businesses or new ventures, it takes a while. So the first year, it's going to be deficit. Second year, it's going to be deficit. The third year, I'm going to question that. I'm going to say, okay, is this a mistake? It's cutting into the summer programs. It's cutting into the pools. It's cutting into other services. We need to weigh that. Am I going to give it a chance? Absolutely. Am I going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again? No. So I'll be one of the first people in a couple years to speak up and say, hey, we need to reconsider, repurpose, and possibly do something else if we cannot manage this facility without too much in the red. It will always be in the red. When somebody told me that several years ago, Merv, this facility will never pay for itself. It's just a matter of how much can we live with. As for the jail, I'm in support of that. I'm in support of that, not just because of the prisoners, but for the workers, for the peace officers who are in there. They are working in a dank place that is just not appropriate for them. We need to think long-term about that. Oh, sorry, blinking.
Thank you, Murph.
Zipping it and locking it.
Thank you.
Lori.
So when I was in office 99 to 2003, the juvenile hall came up at the time. And what I wanted to do is research, again, not reinventing the wheel, but thinking differently about it. Where in the United States did they have other juvenile programs that were successful? Those are the kinds of questions I like to ask. And I discovered at that time, Missouri had a program that was different than a juvenile hall. And I brought that back here, but could not get any traction on this board. A couple of other intervening things happened regarding the juvenile hall. They had promoted it for down at the mine site, and having been in a lot of executive sessions and knowing what our liabilities were there, I didn't believe that would ever come to fruition without many, many lawsuits. I voted against the juvenile hall then because I felt like we weren't thinking out of the box. I didn't support the current one, but I don't want to beat up on decisions that I wasn't at this board and table when that decision was made. I'm frustrated as a taxpayer because The jail has been written up for years, and hundreds of people are using the jails. Hundreds of people are impacted, and hundreds of officers that work in horrible conditions at our jail. We have to address the jail, and we don't have to have a Taj Mahal, but we need to make sure that we address it appropriately and stay within budget. And if I start rolling on that one, I'm out of time, but
Thank you.
I'm sorry about that.
All right. So we'll start with, sorry.
Sorry, I get to answer the question.
Sorry.
The jail, we need a new jail. That was mandated. I mean, we've been failing on inspections. That's something we have to have. That juvenile hall was not something we had to have. So that's my answer on that. And when it comes to intent, I'll give Marv a rebuttal. We can't make decisions on wishy-washy intents as a supervisor. We have to make difficult decisions that are going to be appropriate with our budget.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're into our closing statements. And so we will start with Aaron.
So what I have to bring to the table is I've worked for the government for most of my career, so I know what it's about. I know big budget, so I can provide that insight. I also have an AS in natural resources. I'm 3 classes away from forestry, so I can effectively make good decisions on our forest health. One other thing is that I've been on a lot of boards. I've been on boards from local to state, Veterans of Foreign Wars. I've been on the local TCVC board for many years now, Columbia College ASCC board. So I bring a lot of experience to the table, and I'd like to keep the young atmosphere that District 3 has graciously given Evan for the last 2 cycles. We have a lot of experience on the board, as you can see from District 2, but we need to keep a young voice, young families, and that young perspective going, and I hope District 3 supports something like that. If elected, you will have my full attention, but I will continue my volunteer time in the community. I think leading by example is very important, and from the community up is how we're going to improve our government. So I also look forward to, if you don't already know, is most of my salary is going to be donated back to the community. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm asking for your support. Just to be nice, I decided to do, I give everybody the opportunity to help me with my gentleman's ballot. We all got our ballots in the mail today. So if you'd like to go to my Facebook page and tell me who you think I should support in my gentleman's vote, please do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anaya.
All right. Well, I don't know what else to say other than I'm here for all the right reasons. 6 months ago, I was just a citizen, still am a citizen, just like you guys, going to work, raising a family, just doing the best with what I could, with what I had. And really, being a soccer coach, a youth director at my church, a public servant, just trying to be, a good father, a good husband. But I didn't feel like I was being represented properly. So I stood up. I'll always stand up. I'll always fight on behalf of principles and values that are going to protect our community, that are going to make our community thrive, that are going to do what's in the best interest of all of us here and in the future generations to come. So with that being said, like Aaron said, we need to have young blood up on the board. I joke with Randy all the time. I've told him a few times, I go, hey, Randy, in 20 years you might be gone, but I'll be 53. My daughter will be 28. My boy will be 26. So I have some skin in the game. I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking about my future. I'm thinking about my community's future. And that really is at the heart of what I bring to the table. So I wrote right here, who can unite the generations, both young and old, to come together, to work together and build a strong community that overcomes problems that government cannot? I say I can. I'm here to fight. Who represents the next generation of leaders? I do. Who is willing to make personal sacrifices to serve his community further? I already have, and I will continue to do that. It's who I am. It's who I've been brought up. My father's sitting here tonight. Thank you for all the wisdom you've instilled in me and the hard work ethic. I am who I am, and I'm successful because You and Mom, you guys poured into me, and you didn't let me get away with crap. And you didn't put me on Ritalin. Instead, you focused my energy, my attention, and I worked hard to get where I am in life, and I'm thankful to bring that to this table. And to every decision that I make that comes across my desk, I will trust, but I will verify everything, and I will represent you people well. So Anaya Kirk for District 3 Supervisor. You can visit anayakirk.com, read my fine print, and you can see more about what I'm about. So God bless you guys, and thank you.
Go, Merv.
Campaigning has given me the opportunity to meet and build relationships with many wonderful business owners, individuals, families, and leaders in our community. In closing, I would like to address 3 issues. First, I am grateful to you, taxpayers, for paying my salary as a teacher for the past 34 years. If I'm elected, in my book, $50,000 a year plus benefits is a full-time salary. I will earn my keep by bringing dedication and experience. If I kept both jobs as a teacher and as a supervisor, I know myself well enough that I would not be able to be 100% effective at both jobs. 8 hours working as a teacher and 8 hours working as a supervisor equals 16 hours a day. That only leaves me 8 hours left in a day. When would I have time to spend with my wife? Sleep, volunteer, recreate, be involved with my church, or do chores, or be with my wife again. Second, to be an effective supervisor, I will develop relationships with stakeholders. As you all know, building relationships with others takes time. I will set up office hours during the day and evening so that my constituents who work during the day will be able to attend. I'll go out of my way to reach out to others. It doesn't matter if you are young or old, rich or poor, Democrat or Republican, I will represent you with an equal voice. Finally, I will count on teamwork to get things done. I will bring stakeholders to the table so that we can identify our goal, find our common ground so that we can start with small victories. The YSS Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions is a great model for teamwork. When you have 24 entities such as 2Care and CSERC sitting at the same room, at the same table with the same goal of having a healthy forest, solutions will come to fruition. Roads, jobs, and public safety for seniors and families are my priorities. My name is Merv Cancio, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you, Merv. And Miss Lori.
Thank you. I've worked all my life with young people, and I've dedicated every minute of my life to making sure that students get what they need. And to think because I'm 61 years old that I suddenly stopped caring about young people is so wrong-headed that it's nauseating. Merv and I have spent our life serving this community, and Merv and I are going to intend, either one, hopefully, attend to being a board of supervisor and attend full-time to it. We have our hearts in that kind of work. After teaching at Columbia and Sierra Conservation Center, I'd once again like to serve as county supervisor. I served 7 years on the Tuolumne Fire Board. I realized fire and loss of insurance are the greatest threat to District 3. And I understand fire safety and emergency services. Our complex funding structure needs attention, certainly. We also need to establish and mark emergency routes throughout the county. One issue that was asked at one of those private questionings that we've had lately by the Board of Realtors was, how would I work to reduce litigation? And I think it's like an example of what I think about when I work as a board member. I thought that it was a great question. How do you reduce litigation once projects are approved? And I thought, excellent. You mitigate or you litigate. By having open public access and having everybody welcomed at the board and reasonable concerns are mitigated, we avoid litigation. If we feel like there's kind of a monogamous group and there's not a lot of diversity in opinions on the board, or that decisions seem to be pretty tight all the time, and we don't feel like we've had a voice, then we tend to have problems. I'm going to use a case in point. When working with the community and the Miwok Tribal Council to establish the largest employer in District 3, Black Oak Casino, I sought to bring every effective agency to the table. And when we had hearings, the concerns were mitigated. There was one exception, one utility chose not to be there, and they were the ones that ended up suing the tribe. Bringing the people together, addressing mitigation and the needs of the community, making sure everyone's voice is heard is absolutely essential.
Thank you, Lori. So I would like to take this time to thank each of our candidates, if all of them are still in the room, and the ones that we have up here. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you guys have had so many forums to speak at, and hopefully you've had a different fielding of questions at each one and not answered questions over and over again. I would also like to thank those participating tonight, local cable channel 8, the Union Democrat, the Board of Directors, and the Government Affairs for the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce, who helped make this another successful candidate forum. The candidates you heard tonight are seeking your vote. You have heard what they have to say and how they respond to the various questions from our panel. We applaud the candidates for giving their time to seek public service and for helping make Tuolumne County a better place to live by improving our business climate and outlook for jobs. The most important thing is to exercise your constitutional right to vote. Today's issues made clear the importance of our representative form of government, and with that, the responsibility we all have to vote and elect candidates reflective of your values and the issues important to you. Please get out to vote on Tuesday, June 5th at your polling place unless you are a mail-in voter. Thank you for being in our audience, and remember to keep an eye out for the local cable channel 8 playbacks of tonight's candidates forum. I'll be getting the information out to you when it'll play, and have a great night, and thank you so very much for a wonderful evening.
Thank you.